Chapter 27. You want to know why? Jianghu looked down at him and said, "You molested the maidservants of the inner court and even tried to force them. You have dirty hands and feet and embezzled the estate's finances. Moreover, a servant of the outer court came to the kitchen of the inner court. Who gave you the courage?" With every word Jianghu said, the servant's face became paler, and his eyes were filled with panic. The housekeeper's expression changed. "Second Lang Jun, you mean, furthermore, you didn't go to the mountains to look for me last night. Instead, you went to a prostitute's bed. You people go to brothels and drink together, but you like to gather in one place so that you can cover up for each other, right?" Jianghu frowned in disgust and said to the housekeeper, "Before we sell them, get someone to search this and that house to see if there are any financial records of the manor. If there are, don't look for a middleman. Just send them to the magistrate's office." Second Lang Jun. "You have no evidence, so why are you slandering me?" The servant looked a little flustered, but he quickly calmed down and said, "My parents have served the master of the mansion with all their might, and there have never been any accidents. That's also the credit of your parents. What does it have to do with you stealing or not? Come to think of it, you've reminded me. Butler, investigate his parents as well. What kind of place do you think the Lu residence is? A place that keeps a bunch of leeches?" The housekeeper didn't understand. He didn't know how his Lang Jun had become so powerful overnight, but he was loyal. He would do whatever Jianghu said. The servants were uneasy, but they did not believe that Jianghu would really do that. Father Lu was about to return from his duties. He would arrive in a few days. The people in the Lu residence were arranged by her father before he left. If Jianghu was really filial, she would not be so heartless. In this era, if one had the slightest reputation of being unfilial, one could forget about becoming an official. Thinking of this, everyone felt much more at ease. The system watched helplessly as its host's combat power was brutally and cleanly taken care of, and it was instantly dumbfounded. "No. Host, you don't have any evidence. If this gets out, others will have a bad opinion of you." According to the plot of the house fighting plot, the female lead would always have a battle of wits and courage with the servant. The servant would be cunning, while the female lead would be wise and powerful. Bit by bit, she would uncover the truth and throw the evidence in the servant's face, shattering his psychological defenses and finally achieving a complete victory. You condense more than a dozen chapters of exciting otaku fights into 2 simple and crude sentences. Host, this is very unprofessional, do you understand? Are you kidding me? Jianghu really wanted to point at her own eyes and tell the system, "What I see with my eyes is evidence. Others can't see it because they're blind. Do I have to waste time and effort to point and tell them where to look?" The system, ginseng rooster again. Damn it, the system's days were numbered. Furthermore, do I need to accommodate them when dealing with a few problematic slaves? Do I have to bring out the evidence one by one? Tell me, who is the real master of the Lu residence? Is it those servants, or me? Jianghu was speechless at the system's logic. Jianghu smiled and thought to herself, anyway, when the housekeeper finds evidence of corruption or cheating, no one will dare to say anything. This is also a warning. Don't lie to me, or they won't even know how they died. Understand? The system suddenly felt a chill run down its spine. It was as if it had been shot in the knee. Jianghu was not worried that the housekeeper would deal with the servants. She simply ordered someone to prepare hot water and new clothes. The clothes she was wearing belonged to someone else. To avoid unnecessary trouble, it was better to change out of them as soon as possible. "You're the fastest host I've ever seen to adapt to a new identity," the system said darkly, unsure if it was being sarcastic. Jianghu said matter-of-factly, "That's because I make the best use of my circumstances. If I can be happy, why should I hold my breath?" Now that she was Lu Lanting, what was wrong with making use of her status? Lu Lanting's clothes were much more complicated than the ones she had borrowed. They looked more luxurious, and the dark patterns and embroidery on them were exquisite. Of course, to Jianghu, it looked more anti-human. She asked the maid to pick a plain one. Jiang Pengji lowered her head slightly and saw two maids helping her wrap up her chest. Then, they helped her put on the clothes one by one. Host, it seems like the fact that Lu Lanting is a girl is not a secret in the residence. She doesn't even have a study boy. She only has maids to serve her, the system muttered. I wonder why she disguised herself as a boy. Not everyone knows. Otherwise, those noble ladies would not have been so surprised when they found out that Lu Lanting is a girl. The system asked, specific people? For example, Lu Lanting's maids, the housekeeper, the second lady. They all know about it and will keep it a secret. If other people find out, who knows if they will spread it out because they are too talkative or have other motives. Lu Lanting alone was not enough to hide her identity. When Jiang Pengji was bathing, she had chased the maid out, but when it was time to put on her clothes, she had no choice but to call the maid back. The clothes were too anti-human. If there's a chance, I'd like to find out why Lu Lanting replaced his late brother. Incense was a popular trend nowadays. The maids had already prepared her clothes with incense, which had a calming effect on her. After putting on the anti-human clothes, the maid hung a jade pouch on her waist. Jiang Pengji felt like the pouch would jingle when she walked. Jiang Pengji thought that was enough until another servant girl came in with a plate of hairpin flowers. There's no need for that. She really couldn't resist the idea of having a colorful silk flower on her hair crown. Of course, she had read Lu Lanting's memories, so she knew that it was fashionable for men to use incense and flowers. But she still felt that it was too feminine. She could not bear to look at the beautiful flower on her head. I feel like something is missing. Jiang Pengji thought for a moment, and an idea came to her. She took out a sandalwood fan with engravings of bamboo. Doesn't this make me look more handsome? After the maid left, Jiang Pengji made a gesture of unsheathing her sword in the blurry bronze mirror. Then she opened the sandalwood fan in her hand. I was bored and watched the ancient TV series that I'm currently following. It's probably the standard look of a dissolute and uninhibited young man who can win over both men and women when he smiles. The system wanted to facepalm. Its host's integrity was always running away from home. It was tiring. Chapter 28. User 3216, from Chiba, the almighty streamer is indeed a mysterious girl 23333 user Ray 11, +1. The streamer's posture just now made my heart pound. Alice Baobei, did the streamer really kill a lot of people yesterday? Jiang Pengji didn't understand. She glanced at the record and found that after she changed her clothes, the originally empty streaming room suddenly had more than 100 visitors, and the number was still increasing. From time to time, a system notification popped up that a visitor had entered the room. System, what's going on? Jiang Pengji was confused. Only 10 viewers came to the live stream the night before. On the other side, the system was also confused by the sudden increase in popularity. However, to prevent Jiang Pengji from becoming a rooster, it immediately displayed its dignity as a system and figured out the source of the wave of viewers in a second or two. The viewers who watched the live stream yesterday took screenshots of the host's live stream and posted them on the public platform of their world, Baidu. Now, these tourists are attracted by the fame. The number of people in the channel was still increasing, and the system could not help but be speechless. Jiang Pengji reached out and poked at the bronze mirror that was not very clear. A viewer in the bullet screen said that he wanted to see the antique up close. She secretly communicated with the system. This is equivalent to a disguised channel for publicity. That's why these people followed the channel number to find us. Yeah, the system had a worried look on its face. It did not tell Jiang Pengji that in order to guide her to become a qualified warrior of the ancient language, it would reward the host with various live streaming tasks in the future. According to the degree of completion of the tasks, the host would be recommended by the live streaming platform of the dimensional world. Spurring the streamer to rack his brains to broadcast live, the system's behavior was equivalent to an investment, but the investment was small, the return was huge. These were the rigid rules of the game set by the system itself, and it could not be changed. With recommendations, the popularity of the live broadcast room would increase rapidly. Jiang Pengji quickly accepted the setting. Then let me guess. I guess the publicity gimmick is the video of me killing people, hunting, and promoting food? People like to watch a good show, so it's not surprising that it could attract so many people. The system, on the other hand, had a bitter taste in its mouth, but it could not speak of it. On the bullet screen, viewers kept asking if the video of him killing the bandits last night was real, and some people kept questioning it. AI. Some guru checked it and said that there is no trace of Photoshop in the video. Host is a liar. If she dared to kill so many people, the people's uncles would have taken her away. Don't rob Lu. I told you that it's a live broadcast of otaku fights. In ancient times, killing thieves would be regarded as heroes. Chives Bankai, I don't know which film studio it was shot in. It looks real, but it's actually faking its death. Host, stop lying. Only a fool would believe that there's such a thing as a multidimensional live broadcast. Those who are watching can go home now. Leave the channel to preserve your intelligence. User 1438, but don't you think it's weird? It seems like this channel number can be found on any live streaming platform. User 334, I tried it just now, and I can really find all of them. Panda, grilled fish, and YX are all available. I was scared to death. User 3356, she's stirring things up again. It must be a host who has gone crazy from wanting to be famous. Didn't the news say that a host had transmigrated? In the end, it was proven that the other party was lying. It's obviously fake. User 3838, crazy from wanting to be famous +1. These women who have undergone plastic surgery, in order to be famous, will call rich men husbands, sleep with them, dance, strip, scream, and have sex with a few men. What can't they do? It's disgusting. They'll open their legs as long as you give them money. User 5567, crazy from wanting to be famous +N. It's so ugly. Nowadays, any woman who can open her legs can come out for a live broadcast. The culture has been led astray by these sensationalists. I dare predict that when this host becomes famous, she'll definitely send gifts to rich men from thousands of miles away. User 9873, crazy from wanting to be famous +N. I'll bet 20 cents that she looks like an underage girl, which suits the tastes of some perverts. Jianghu did not set a bullet screen limit for the audience, so there were all kinds of comments on the screen. Most of them were questioning, and some were even cursing. She expressed that it was the first time she had seen such a chaotic scene. It was as if a tank of dirty water had fallen from the sky. Host. Do you want to limit the number and level of the bullet screen? The system saw that the number of viewers had risen to the 500 mark. Although it was happy to gain popularity, it was also worried that its host would hate the live broadcast even more because of the intensive abuse and ginseng cock. When that time came, it would cry. The bullet screen was flying, but Jianghu's reading speed was not just for show. The escalating abuse and comments refreshed her vocabulary. Jianghu, on the other hand, said suspiciously, why limit it? It's quite interesting, system, it was wrong. Its host was not an ordinary person at all. This level of ginseng cock was not even enough to scratch an itch. However, it had forgotten that once its host bore a grudge, she would not be an ordinary person when she took revenge. Let them curse. To be honest, it's an eye-opener for me to learn how to curse people after growing up, Jianghu said with amusement. I thought that when I took over the 7th Legion, it was already a hopeless rogue legion. I didn't expect it to pale in comparison. From her point of view, there was a technique to scold people. A good scolding person would not use a single dirty word, yet it could make the person angry to the point of having a brain hemorrhage. For someone to curse someone's ancestors and genitals at the drop of a hat, their mouth was too dirty, and they had no manners at all. If I were a scholar, maybe I could come up with a social research topic similar to the qualities of modern humans. Jianghu's face did not show the slightest hint of anger. She did not even care about the audience. She had been humiliated to her grandmother's house. Those who were cursing her on the screen, which was getting dirtier and fiercer, had no idea that they had been humiliated in front of one of the main leaders of the Interstellar Human Alliance, the Legion commander. Don't tell me you want me to scold you back for being unsightly? She never liked to talk too much when it came to things that could be solved with her fists. Of course, under certain circumstances, she preferred to use words to attack people. If the system dared to say yes, Jiang Pengji felt that she would definitely find a way to strangle it to death. I'm in charge of my channel. The system said decisively, no, I think I can give them permission. If the other party's account was given permission, they might even change to another account. That was also a bit of popularity. Jiang Pengji immediately thought of the system's little scheme. She scolded it with a smile, you're only so promising. That little bit of popularity can lure you away. I'm really afraid that one day you'll be abducted by a piece of sesame seed cake. Wait a little longer, the best is yet to come. After hearing that, the system's body trembled. No, why did it feel that something was wrong? No, host. Don't tell me that you want to tear your own audience apart? You're supposed to tear apart the legal mother / the stepmother / the siblings / the weird relatives and elders, not the master of the audience. Chapter 29. Some of Jiang Pengji's words were like toilet paper. She threw them away after using them and let them go as if they were farts. The insults on the screen were getting more and more unbearable. Some angels could not take it anymore and started fighting with the trolls. Jiang Pengji's eyes were extremely sharp. She accurately found out the desire of some little angels to take a closer look at the layout of the ancient houses. While the others were fighting, she was not affected at all. Lu Lanting was the only legitimate son left in the family, so most of the family's resources were given to her. Lu Lanting's father was often away from home, so the study was Lu Lanting's. Even if her only legitimate brother wanted to borrow books, he had to ask for her permission. In that era, there was a clear distinction between legitimate sons and illegitimate sons. In some aristocratic families, illegitimate sons had a lower status than even servants. She heard that her brother had broken his head playing yesterday. She wondered how he was doing now. She did not need to show any concern for him, nor did she need to be courteous. All she had to do was ask about him. If she asked too much, people would find it strange. There was a rather large study room in the outer courtyard on the east side. The bookshelves were filled with all kinds of bamboo slips and booklets bound with precious bamboo paper. The handwriting on the booklets was exquisite. Even if Jiang Pengji knew little about calligraphy, she had to admit that the handwriting was very pleasing to the eye. In that era, books were an important indicator of a family's wealth, and the bamboo paper books were even more valuable. Suddenly, a bullet screen caught her attention. Yongyuan Tian Tian, what a bug. What era did the host set? Why does she even have paper? Paper? Jiang Pengji snapped out of her thoughts and picked up the book. She used her thumb and forefinger to feel the paper. It was smoother than she had expected. In her opinion, this kind of paper was frighteningly rough. However, in ancient times, when paper first appeared, it was even more expensive than gold. In Lu Lanting's memory, the paper used by the nobles in the outside world was even rougher than this. It seemed that the Lu family was not as simple as it seemed. Jiang Pengji's interest was piqued, and her lips curled into a smile. It was probably because the scolding was too fierce that many people jumped to this channel to watch the fun. Jiang Pengji glanced at the number of viewers in the live stream, which was about to break the 1,000 mark. The system was probably so happy that it fainted. Maybe it was grinning all the way to its earlobes. Just then, a maid outside the study whispered, "Second Lang Jun, Madam who wants to see you." Madam who? Jiang Pengji frowned slightly, as if she was wondering why the system was looking for her. The system, which was pretending to be dead, immediately said excitedly, "Ah, you're thinking too much. It's probably because of the servants. It just so happens that I was planning to go there as well." Jiang Pengji put the book back on the shelf, walked to the door, and said to the servant girl, "Lead the way, don't let Lady Dai wait for too long." At this time, the bullet screen was filled with a few new and refreshing content. Who doesn't bathe? Pfft, did I hear it wrong? Second Lang Jun. Which dynasty is that? I almost heard it as Erlang Shen. Who doesn't bathe? Ha 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 ha, I almost heard it wrong too. Big cousin's instant noodle hair popped up in my head. 23333, Jiang Pengji did not understand. She knew about Erlang Shen, who was a mythical character from ancient times. But what the hell was big cousin and instant noodle hair? Murue Huakai, host, where did you find such a classic beauty? She's so classy. I think she's much better than the wax figures in the museum. Can you zoom in and adjust the angle? I want to see closer. Zoom in, zoom in. I'm begging on my knees. Jiang Pengji frowned. Coincidentally, the maid missed a step, and half of her body leaned forward. She was about to fall. Be careful. Without thinking, she took a wrong step and appeared next to the maid in a flash. Her long arm wrapped around the maid's slender waist, and her other hand stretched to the maid's shoulder to stabilize the maid's smooth and slender shoulder. With a beautiful turn of her body, she dispelled the force of the fall and allowed the two of them to stand firmly. Be careful next time. Otherwise, if you miss a step, you might not only fall but also sprain your ankle. Jiang Pengji let go of the maid without hesitation, but she still looked gentle and concerned. She did not scold the maid at all. Thank you, Second Lang Jun, the maid bowed in shock, afraid that Jiang Pengji would scold her. She did not expect Jiang Pengji to not only help her up, but also show concern for her. A clear stream of comments drowned out the scolding from before. Murue Huakai, I was so happy just now that I took a few pictures of classic beauties. I don't have to worry about changing the screensaver on my computer and phone, but I was caught off guard. Host, how could you tease such a beautiful woman? Yongyuan Tian Kong, caught off guard. You're so lucky. Tudu Feichio, 23333. When it comes to flirting with girls, you're the best. Don't snatch Wei Lu. I felt like my heart was about to explode. Let go of that host and let me do it. You're welcome. Hurry up and go to Madame Dai's. I don't know why she's looking for me. The maid was Madame Hu's servant, and she was usually rude to Lu Lanting. But today, for some reason, she felt an impulse. She tilted her head slightly and reminded Lu Lanting in a low voice, Second Lang Jun, it seems that the housekeeper in the manor has gone to Madame Hu's. Her family is making a scene, saying that Second Lang Jun has mistreated them. Tudu Feichio, 23333333333. I can guarantee that the maid has been mesmerized by the male hormones of the stream. Jiang Pengji glanced at the comments and smiled helplessly. Host V, a beautiful and cute girl has the right to be cared for. I can't bear to see her frown because she sprained her ankle. Suddenly, the comments exploded again, and a series of 666666666 flew by, wiping out the quarreling comments. Jiang Pengji was in a good mood, not only because of the clear stream of comments, but also because of the information that the maid had revealed. There were always people who were considerate enough to know that she needed a chicken to warn the monkeys, so they offered themselves to her. Tudu Feichio, I have a bad feeling about this. Why do I feel like the host is about to make a big move? On the other hand, Madame Hu, who had just calmed down, secretly cursed Jiang Pengji in her heart. She did not know what she had done to this brat. She kept finding trouble with her. The older one had left to take up his post, and the younger one was still causing trouble. After taking a sip of tea, Madame Hu tilted her body with a headache. Her pale face showed signs of sickness. The housekeeper couple and their son were kneeling on the ground. Tears streamed down their cheeks as they told the housekeeper how loyal they were to the Lu residents. They didn't neglect the Lu residents at all. In terms of loyalty, they were definitely the top 3 in the Lu residence. Chapter 30. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. As for their son, they had been working hard for the Lu family all their lives, all for this. 30. Their baby? He had begged the housekeeper to give him a position as a guard, so that he could climb up the ranks step by step and have a place in the Lu family. They had not expected to be slandered by the second Lang Jun for no reason. Not only that, but the ignorant second Lang Jun had doubted their loyalty and had slandered them. The housekeeper had not stopped him and had allowed him to do whatever he wanted. That was why the couple had gone to Madame Hu in tears, hoping that she would seek justice for them. Of course, they were smart enough not to say anything bad about Jiang Pengji. Otherwise, they would be digging their own graves. As a concubine, Madame Hu had been in charge of the Lu family for many years. How could someone of her status like the legitimate son of the deceased first wife? But if the legitimate son was bullied by the servants, it would be no different than slapping her in the face. It was one thing to dislike the second Lang Jun, but it was another for the servants to humiliate the Lu family. Therefore, they had only hinted at one thing out of consideration. They had been with Father Lu since they were young, and Father Lu had entrusted them with important tasks before he passed away. To some extent, they represented Father Lu's reputation. What the second Lang Jun had done was disrespecting Father Lu. To put it more seriously, it was unfilial. From the previous dynasty to the current 5 dynasties, filial piety had always been emphasized. It was also an important criterion for an official to become an official. A filial person might not be able to become an official, but an unfilial person would never be able to become an official. Upon hearing this, Madame Butterfly's lazy expression turned serious, and she immediately sat up straight. Seeing this, the butler and his wife thought that they had touched Madame Butterfly's heart, and they immediately calmed down as if they had taken a tranquilizer. "You know quite a lot," Madame Hu slowly took a sip of tea. She did not put on any makeup and looked very clean. She did not look as glamorous and imposing as she usually did. Instead, she looked more lazy, as if she could not do anything and was not interested in anything. The housekeeper and his wife saw that they had a chance, so they cheered up and flattered her. "Master and Madam Hu care about us. We have been in the family for so many years and have been influenced by Master's literary talent. I feel like I have a few jars of ink." Madame Hu's eyes flickered and her neatly trimmed black eyebrows furrowed. "I am just a lowly concubine. Other than the late lady and the one in the eastern inner court, no one has the right to call me master." The butler and his wife continued to flatter Madame Hu and said, "Madam, you don't have to say that. Everyone knows that you and old master are childhood sweethearts. You are a match made in heaven." If Madame hadn't taken advantage of, he lowered his head and spoke. Madame Hu had placed an exquisite embroidered screen in front of her, so the gloomy look in his eyes could not be seen. The maid knelt outside the door and whispered, "Madame Hu, the second Lang Jun is here." Madame Hu tightened her grip on the black wooden table beside her and said, "Let him in." Jiang Pengji could enter the second lady's room as she pleased, but she could not treat Madame Hu that way. Fortunately, Madame Hu and Lu Lanting did not interact much. They were strangers, so Jiang Pengji was not afraid of being recognized. The maid opened the door and sat down on Madame Hu's right. "May I know why you are looking for me?" She could see Madame Hu's face from her seat. Jiang Pengji, who was used to seeing beautiful women, was stunned the moment she saw Madame Hu. Madame Hu's appearance was not that of a noble lady, but it was what Jiang Pengji admired the most. Seductive but not seductive, gorgeous but not uncommon. She exuded a mature temperament and style from head to toe, causing others to feel a fatal temptation, yet because of that indescribable aggressiveness, they had no choice but to maintain a certain distance. Her eyebrows carried a hint of heroism, which made her look more spirited. There was a mole at the corner of her right eye. Her eyes were half closed, and her thick, long eyelashes moved with her breathing, as if she was trying to tickle someone's heart. All in all, this was a charming, mature, and beautiful woman who was born with the aura of a royal sister. This kind of beauty was not something that a little girl who was still wet behind the ears could disguise. Her natural charm, self-restraint, and bearing all required the accumulation of time to create such a stunner. There was no generation gap when it came to beauty, regardless of the era. If Madame Hu could amaze Jiang Pengji, it was only natural that the audience would fall for her. Yongyuan Tiankong, ah, what a beautiful lady. Mama asked me why my phone screen is so wet. Mui huakai, */w***, so beautiful. I have a new screensaver. The beauty is so recognizable. Don't snatch Lu, streamer, the moment I saw your dad's mistress, I decided to be friends with you. User 3216, beautiful lady, I've already ruined a phone and a computer by licking them. User Ray11, thank you for the OP's recommendation. It makes me want to recommend it too. There are so many beautiful girls in this live broadcast channel. It cured my face blindness. The barrage on the screen was like a fountain erupting, countless PR almost drowning the entire screen. Jiang Pengji did not look at it for long, but according to her memory, even if it was only for a moment, she could remember the smallest details with just a glance. The system did not have to deliberately feel for it to know that Jiang Pengji was happy and relaxed at that moment. This discovery made it a little confused. The system said, I don't care if you're flirting with girls, but BG harem fights do not support the host playing GL side quests. Otherwise, I'm going to cry. Jiang Pengji secretly rolled her eyes. Sometimes, the system was cuter when it was quiet. Everyone loves beauty. It's just a hobby of mine. Who gave you the wrong impression that I might like girls? As Jiang Pengji chatted with the system, Madam Hu's slightly hoarse voice could be heard from above. Where are you looking at, Erlang? In fact, the seemingly lazy Madam Hu was also distracted for a moment. Of course, Madam Hu was in a daze not because she thought Jiang Pengji was beautiful, but because she saw Jiang Pengji's blurry figure walking slowly through the half-transparent screen. She had the illusion that an old friend had returned, and she almost lost her mind. But she quickly hid it, and Jiang Pengji happened to look away at the same time, so no one noticed. Jiang Pengji smiled gently, like a piece of warm jade. I'm looking at Aunt Dai, whom I haven't seen for a long time. Everyone was bewildered when they heard this. She was the legitimate son of the family, so why would she tease her stepmother? But Jiang Pengji did not say it without thinking. According to her observations, Madam Hu knew Lu Lanting's secret. Chapter 31. Madam Hu had never liked Lu Lanting. When she was in charge of the Lu residence, she did not deliberately bully the son of the first wife, but she was not on good terms with him either. They would only meet 3 to 5 times a year, but they would only exchange a dozen words. She was very cold. Under such circumstances, Madam Hu knew Lu Lanting's biggest secret, but no one knew about it. Either Madam Hu had other concerns, or the lady did not hate her as much as Lu Lanting thought she did. Madam Hu's interest was piqued when she heard Jiang Pengji's unexpected words. What did you see? People are like fine wine. Their fragrance increases with age. You haven't aged after so many years, and you're even more charming now. As Jiang Pengji spoke, she heard a few gasps in the room. Everyone's mind was probably filled with comments like, how dare the second Lang Jun flirt with his stepmother in public? What the F***ck? Madam Hu twirled her handkerchief and chuckled. Since when did you become so sweet? I almost took your words seriously. Concubine Dai is a natural beauty, it's hard for her to abandon herself. If others praise her, it's naturally true. The mother and son chatted with each other, and they even ignored the housekeeper and his wife who were kneeling below them. They seemed to be having a good time talking to each other. Suddenly, Madam Hu mentioned the mole at the corner of her eye and asked Jiang Pengji if she was beautiful. Jiang Pengji did not understand, but she answered honestly, it's the finishing touch. If it's missing, it'll be less charming. The gasps in the room died down. Jiang Pengji frowned. Had she broken a taboo? At that moment, a viewer who seemed to know a thing or two about physiognomy posted a comment. Feng Shui Master Gaotu, host, you've broken a taboo. That mole has an ominous meaning. It could bring bad luck to your husband and children. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Unexpectedly, Madam Hu, who was supposed to be angry at being stepped on, smiled coquettishly. You have a sweet mouth, just like your mother. Mother? Madame Hu knew Lu Lanting's mother. From her tone, it sounded like they were not as hostile as the rumors said. While she was puzzled, Madame Hu leaned against the table and looked at the butler and his wife behind the screen. I heard from them that you privately handed the guards over to the butler to deal with and had him take them to the magistrate's office. You even wanted to search their houses? Is this true? Madame Dai changed the topic. Her expression was cold, as if she wasn't the one who had been chatting and laughing with Jiang Pengji. Jiang Pengji sat down with a straight face and said, "That's true." Why? Did they bring their whole family to bother you? He is, after all, an old man arranged by your father. Even if you want to punish him, you should be cautious to prevent others from gossiping. As soon as Madame Dai spoke, the manager and his wife's gloomy faces immediately brightened. They even seemed a little happy. It's just punishing a few servants who made a mistake. Do I have to be held back by them? It was true that they were the elders left behind by their father, but this did not mean that they were taking advantage of their seniority. Moreover, I would like to ask you, concubine Dai. Is it worse to punish a servant who made a mistake, or is it worse to punish a servant who takes advantage of his seniority but ends up being restrained? The former would be criticized for not being strict enough and having a servant, but the latter would be a complete disgrace to the aristocrats in Hejin County. Everything needs evidence. Even if they are servants in the manor, they still need to follow the rules. Madame Hu smiled faintly. Jiang Pengji secretly took a deep breath. She was not used to the way things were handled in this era. If it was in the past, she would have been lucky not to have slapped them to death. Now they wanted evidence. He was tired of living and wanted to hang himself. She had wanted to show some mercy and sell them to a faraway place. What she did not see, she would not be sad. Now, she was digging her own grave. Housekeeper, go to the kitchen in the inner courtyard and find a servant girl. I don't know what she looks like, but she has a unique characteristic. She might be sick today, or she might be in low spirits and is forcing herself to work, but she is absent-minded. Jiang Pengji's words were strange, but no one except her noticed that the servant kneeling beside the housekeeper and his wife had his legs trembling and fists clenched. She snorted coldly, and her eyes were filled with killing intent. You want to use evidence to prove yourself? Very well, I will use evidence to cut off your family's escape route. The housekeeper took the order and left. Jiang Pengji held the sandalwood fan in her hand and opened and closed it intermittently. Her lips were curled up with a hint of bloodlust. The bullet screen suddenly quietened down. At that moment, the number of viewers in the streaming room had quietly climbed to the 1,500 mark, and there were even more than 300 followers. This meant that when Jiang Pengji started streaming in the future, these followers would receive the live stream notification immediately. Then, based on this, they would accumulate a fixed group of viewers who would watch the live stream. The system looked at the number and was overjoyed. Not long after, the housekeeper brought a servant girl in coarse gray clothes over. Lang Jun, the girl is here. After that, the housekeeper knelt beside Jiang Pengji and whispered in her ear, when we found her, she was trying to kill herself. Jiang Pengji closed her eyes and said to Madame Hu, Lanting, I have a favor to ask. Can I borrow your servant girl? Sure. Madame Hu looked at the scene with curiosity and interest. She wanted to know what Jiang Pengji was going to do. However, in the next second, Jiang Pengji's words almost angered her. Bring the servant girl down for a body check. See if there are any signs of her being violated within a short period of time. Before she could finish her sentence, Madame Hu slammed her hand on the short table beside the table. The sound echoed throughout the room. Bastard. When Madame Hu slapped him with her palm, or rather, when Jiang Pengji said those words, the guard was already at a loss of what to do. Without looking at anything else, just by looking at his reaction, everyone vaguely realized something and immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. How could a servant in the outer courtyard have an affair with a servant girl in the inner courtyard? The inner courtyard was a forbidden area for men, except for Lu Langjuan's father, the second Lang Jun, and a young concubine. Even if the housekeeper wanted to enter, he had to be watched. Furthermore, it had to be an urgent matter, and there was a time limit. Yesterday, I accidentally ran into a scoundrel. Madam who sent people to look for me, but these daring servants went to brothels, and brothels. Not only did they fool around with prostitutes, but they also went to the gambling house. When they came back in the middle of the night, they snuck into the inner courtyard and raped a servant girl in the kitchen who happened to wake up at night. The inner courtyard is where Mother, Madam Hu, and my sister sleep. If he counted on those idiots to save Lu Lanting, he would be dead by now. That's not enough to deal with this animal. The housekeeper and his wife widened their eyes, but when they saw their son's flustered expression, they could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. It was that lowly servant girl who seduced me. It wasn't me, the servant hurriedly denied it. He even straightened his body and pushed away the servant girl who was kneeling beside him, panicking as if his secret had been exposed. What a joke. A servant who sold his assets to molest and humiliate a servant girl in the manner was definitely going to die. He could not admit it. Chapter 32. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Jiang Pengji stood up and looked at the servant coldly. You usually rely on your parents in the Lu manner to act like a tyrant. That's why you can beg the patrolling servants to let you into the inner court. It's a pity that you saw the servant girl and suddenly had evil intentions. You knocked her out and acted like a beast. There are still scratches under your sleeves from her struggle. How do you explain yourself? The servant subconsciously took a step back and held his wrist tightly. At first, Jiang Pengji thought it was an attempt at coercion. After all, in ancient times, any servant who dared to do so was a typical example of someone who didn't care about their life. They could be beaten to death. Moreover, he had been with the prostitutes before, so the traces left behind made her misjudge. But when the housekeeper brought the servant girl in, she found that the situation was more serious than she thought. The couple didn't expect that their son would make such a big mistake. They would definitely be beaten to death with sticks. Under the gaze of his parents, the servant's eyes became bloodshot. He panicked and was at a loss. Seeing that Jiang Pengji was not far from him, and thinking that he was going to die, he suddenly had an evil intention. I'll fight you to the death. Jiang Pengji skillfully dodged to the side. The room suddenly became chaotic. No one expected him to be so daring. Unable to catch Jiang Pengji, the strong and well-trained servant immediately targeted Madame Hu. She was a woman who was sick not long ago, so she was the easiest to deal with. But Jiang Pengji immediately realized his intention. She slapped him in the face with her sandalwood fan. Taking advantage of the moment when he closed his eyes, Jiang Pengji lifted her leg and kicked him in the leg, forcing him to fall forward. Slap. Jiang Pengji used the closed sandalwood fan to slap his face. He didn't know how much strength she used, but the slap made him fall to the ground. From his temple to the bridge of his nose, there was a swollen red mark that was 2 fingers wide. One of his eyes flowed with tears of blood. You've dirted my fan. She threw the blood-stained sandalwood fan to the side of the servant who was curled up on the ground, covering his eyes and howling in pain. The whole thing happened in the blink of an eye. In the end, Jiang Pengji ordered her men to bring the couple in charge under control as well. Not only was the room silent, but the entire bullet screen was also blank. It felt unprecedentedly peaceful. Housekeeper, have you searched their house? How much money did they embezzle from the manor? Report to the magistrate court according to the actual number. Remember, when you send him over, feed him a bowl of mute medicine. As for him, gather all the servants and let everyone see what it means to be beaten to death. Concubine Dai was frightened just now. Remember to get a doctor to prescribe some medicine to calm the nerves. The atmosphere in the room was heavy and frightening. The housekeeper was used to seeing storms, so he was very receptive to it. Lang Jun, I've checked it out. Speaking of this, the old butler felt a little embarrassed. He didn't expect that someone would be able to embezzle so much money under his nose. According to the current laws, if the butler and his wife were taken to the magistrate's office, they would eventually be sentenced to death. However, Lang Jun had really grown up. He could still remember to be considerate in this kind of angry situation. After all, they were old people from the Lus. Who knew how much the couple knew about the affairs of the manor? They couldn't be released unless they were mute. At first, Madame Hu was really frightened by the incident, but it didn't last long. Her attention quickly shifted from panic to the figure reflected on the screen. She was dazed, and she thought that the person she was familiar with would pass through the screen and walk towards her. However, Jiang Pengji's voice brought her back to reality. She had lost interest in it, so she responded in a low voice and asked the servant to help her back to her room. After a moment of silence, the bullet screen suddenly exploded again. Some of the content was doubtful, but most of them were still in disbelief. Some even criticized Jiang Pengji for being too cruel and vicious. They were more and more inclined to believe that the live stream was real. Weisuayue, I believe that the streamer has really traveled through time. But as a modern person, where are your values? You destroyed a person's eyes so easily and wanted to beat him to death in public. That's too cruel. Most of the bullet screen was similar. Most of them were criticizing Jiang Pengji for being cold-blooded and cruel. She secretly curled her lips and asked the system to put her words in the center. Host V, who told you that I'm from the modern era? How could she, a person who had lived on the edge of a knife, fought in space for more than 30 years, and directly or indirectly killed tens of millions of people? She had her own way of doing things and judging. As long as she didn't cross the line, everything was fine. Crossed the line? Then I'm sorry. Host V, let me introduce myself. I am Jiang Pengji, the commander of the 7th Corps of the Interstellar Human Federation. I have the rank of general. Maybe after I die, I will be given the title of honorary marshal. According to your timeline, I belong to the future of humanity about 10 or 20,000 years in the future. As she spoke, she stepped on the wooden clogs under her feet and heard the rhythmic clacking of the clogs. Host V, this is not the peaceful era you are used to, and there is no such thing as human rights. Bloody scenes like today will only increase in the future. You and I are people of two different generations. It is fate that brought us together. If you are curious, I welcome you. If you don't, I won't send you off. The system, damn it. She was not only the most difficult host it had ever met, but also the most famous host the audience had ever met. The system was so angry that the three corpses god was about to explode. If you do this, you'll make everyone leave in anger, understand? Jiang Pengji secretly curled her lips and said with certainty, no, don't worry. The number of people will only increase. The system did not understand, but Jiang Pengji was too lazy to explain. A host from tens of thousands of years in the future streaming in the ancient era that seemed to be thousands of years ago, and it was real. Was the gimmick not big enough? The system quickly realized that the number of people watching the live broadcast was slowly climbing towards 2,000, and it was getting closer and closer to the 2,500 mark. But, why was there so many people watching the live broadcast, but she did not even see any lollipops being tipped? How old are you this year? Jiang Pengji took a flat wooden stick painted with red paint from a servant's hand and walked to the unfortunate maidservant. The maidservant wanted nothing more than to hide in a hole in the ground. If it weren't for the butler who had arranged for someone to keep an eye on her, she would have found a chance to kill herself. I am 13 this year. Although this maidservant was only 13 years old, she had matured quite early. She looked like a slender and elegant girl of 15 or 16. Jiang Pengji handed the wooden stick to her. Under the servant girl's frightened and confused eyes, Jiang Pengji slightly squatted down and looked her in the eye. She used her other hand to pinch the servant girl's jaw. He is tied up and can't move. You can beat him until he is dead. If you can't beat him to death, I will spare his life. The gathered servants did not know what had happened, but they could not help but gasp when they heard Jiang Pengji's words. Jiang Pengji did not care about the looks of others. Instead, she asked the servant girl coldly, "Do you want to beat him or not?" The servant girl's breathing was a bit rapid. Her eyes full of hatred fell on the red stick in Jiang Pengji's hand. She suddenly became more determined, and her breathing became more rapid. Thank you, Lang Jun. Chapter 33. Jiang Pengji sneered and looked at all the stewards and servants who were watching the execution. She said, watch until the person stops breathing. Otherwise, no one is allowed to leave, and no one is allowed to look away. But if anyone dares to spread rumors about what happened here today, they will be punished the same way. They will be beaten to death. I won't point out those who left their posts last night. You can go and receive your punishment after the execution. Are you bullying the Lu family for not having any male servants? Then let's just watch until everyone is scared. The housekeeper watched from the side. He sighed and said in a low voice, Second Lang Jun, isn't this a little too? The Lus were a family of scholars. Whatever they did, they had to pay attention to their demeanor and face. Dirty things like this were usually left to the subordinates to deal with. Jiang Pengji only needed to devise strategies and control the overall situation. However, when the housekeeper thought of Lu Lanting's mother, he felt that it was not unacceptable. Perhaps Second Lang Jun's ruthlessness under his gentle appearance was due to his late wife. Jiang Pengji played with her new fan and said, if I didn't do this, that girl would have died. She is a servant of the Lu family, not an orphan. She has been wronged here, and she has the right to ask for some interest from her creditors. Besides, father has not been here all these years. Although the housekeeper has done his best to take care of the Lu family, he is old and not as energetic as he was when he was young. It's inevitable that he has made mistakes and encouraged these people to do bad things. I can't guarantee that everyone will be as loyal as the housekeeper. The inner court is not a place for outsiders to come and go as they please. That servant had a loose tongue, or rather, he liked to talk nonsense. Jiang Pengji could totally imagine what would happen if he got drunk one day, or if he got complacent and told his friends about her forcing herself on the maidservants in the inner court. Then the whole Hejian county would know about it. By then, the reputation of all the women in the Lus would be ruined. If he didn't die, who would? The housekeeper was still worried that after today's incident, the entire Hejian county would know that the second Lang Jun of the Lu family was a cruel and merciless person. At this time, the sun was not too strong, and it was a little cold when it shone on their bodies. However, this kind of cold was not as cold as their hearts. The maidservant was petite and exquisite, but at this time, she used all her strength to raise the wooden stick and hit the tightly bound man. The other party was in pain and wanted to roll away, so she raised the wooden stick and chased after him. She hit where it hurt, and the dull thuds echoed in everyone's hearts. Not only did the servants who were forced to watch felt their bodies turn cold and their legs tremble, but the people watching the live broadcast on the other side of the screen also couldn't take it. Some of the weaker ones even felt a wave of nausea rise in their throats. Even so, the number of viewers in the live broadcast slowly climbed to 3,000, and there were still many people waiting in line outside. There was a limit to the number of viewers in the streaming room. For a new streamer like Jiang Pengji, the maximum number of viewers was only 3,000. If she wanted to increase the limit, she had to upgrade the streamer's level with the system. It took 100,000 popularity points to upgrade from a first-level streamer to a second-level streamer, and Jiang Pengji's current account only had 1532 popularity points. The housekeeper said shamefully, "It's my fault. I've failed the Lord's trust and ruined your reputation in the future. If it were not for the fact that he did not notice the situation in the manner and did not take precautions, his second Lang Jun would not have used such a fierce and merciless method." Jiang Pengji was very confident about that. Don't worry. No one will dare to say anything. Maybe they will even praise me for being decisive in managing the family. If she did not have such a method, the gentry whose daughters had been kidnapped would be the ones worried. How could a person who did not even dare to hit the servants in the family, and who was restrained by the other party's twisted logic, have the ability to protect himself and the noble girls in that kind of dangerous situation? The housekeeper was speechless. From the beginning to the end, it took more than an hour. The people present and the viewers in the streaming room were forced to watch for more than an hour. The ground was stained with large patches of blood. White brain matter and broken bones were smeared on the ground, and there were some pieces of flesh scattered everywhere. The servants in the courtyard were so scared that they did not dare to make a sound. A few of them felt a slight numbness in their lower abdomens and a warm current flowed down their legs. They were so scared that they could not control themselves. No one could have a clear conscience. They were afraid that the things they had done in the past would be found out and punished. The viewers behind the screen felt that their worldview had been forcibly reshaped. Jianghu acted as if nothing had happened. She leisurely walked forward in her wooden clogs and took the wooden stick that the servant girl almost lost her grip on. She held the servant girl's hand and squeezed it. "I've already asked someone to boil medicine for you. Remember to soak your arm in it after you go down. Otherwise, you will be so sore that you can't lift your hand tomorrow. Look at this pair of hands. They look thin and weak, but they can still avenge you, can't they? Remember, if anyone humiliates you in the future, you have to remember what happened just now. You can only avenge yourself if you're alive. If you're dead, you'll always be the perpetrator. The servant girls of the Lus are not clay figurines that anyone can bully." The maidservant relied on the anger in her heart to keep herself from collapsing. Now that she heard Jiang Pengji's words, she felt an indescribable sense of grievance. She knelt at Jiang Pengji's feet and rested her forehead on the back of her folded hands. Her shoulders trembled and her spine arched as she cried silently. Jiang Pengji sighed softly and asked someone to clean up the corpse. Then she beat up all the servants. In the inner courtyard on the west side of the courtyard, Madame Hu had just woken up from her nap, heard the report from her personal servant. "Did you say that second Lang Jun really ordered someone to beat her to death?" Madame Hu sat up on the soft mattress. A perceptive servant girl immediately fetched a table beside her so that she could lean on it more comfortably. Or did the servant girl beat her to death herself? The servant girl shuddered as she recalled what had just happened. Yes, and second Lang Jun gave the staff to the servant girl himself. The staff was much taller than the maidservant, yet she was able to use such a thick staff to beat the servant to death. Madame Hu didn't think much of it. She said, "What's so strange about that? Women aren't born to be bullied. Once they have hatred in their hearts and they hate someone to the core, they'll take revenge even if it's with their last breath." Madame Hu seemed to recall something and said, "Her fierce and decisive temper is more like her mother's than her father's." Lu's father had been handsome and exquisite when he was young, like an immortal who had walked out of a painting. His temperament was as gentle as jade, and his manner of speaking was modest and polite. No matter who he was talking to, he could make the other party feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. Of course, this guy had grown up drinking black ink. The cleaner his clothes were, the darker the schemes in his stomach were. When it came to matters that could be solved with words, the man could not even walk 2 steps without panting. Lu Lanting's mother, on the other hand, was the complete opposite of him. She had a face that made people worry about her. On the surface, she looked like a noble lady, but behind the scenes, she had a fiery personality. She also liked to cause trouble, and no one could understand what was going on in her head. Their daughter was a combination of their characteristics. She looked like her father, but her fierce and violent nature was like her mother's. But, Madame Hu took a sip of tea. Second Lang Jun is smarter than his mother. Lu Lanting was not her mother. If she got into trouble, there was no Lu Shi to clean up for her. It was better for her to rely on herself. The servant girl did not understand. But, "Madam, second Lang Jun's actions are bad for his reputation." Chapter 34. The maid did not dare to say anything else. She had served Madame Hu for many years, but she still did not understand the lady's temper. It could be said that she liked second Lang Jun, but she secretly liked to make things difficult for people. She was also indifferent when she met people. After all, he was the only legitimate son left by the late Madame. Madame Hu had pestered the old master to become his concubine, did not like second Lang Jun. However, the maid did not think that Madame Hu hated second Lang Jun. The most obvious thing was that Madame Hu had been managing the factories left behind by the late Madame for the past few years. The profits of the factories had increased over the years. Some of them were even a few times more than the Lu family's businesses, but Madame Hu had no intention of taking them for herself. It seemed that she was sincerely helping Second Langjun take care of the businesses and return them to the rightful owner. Other than that, Madame Hu had fainted the day before when she heard that Second Langjun had been kidnapped. To be honest, she was getting more and more confused about the situation of this small Lu residence. Madame Hu's maid could not understand the Lu family, and Jiang Pengji was also getting dizzy. Jiang Pengji planned to read all the books in the study in order to understand more about this era. With her memory, it would not take long. Other than a few books that were bound with paper, most of the books were made of heavy bamboo slips. However, before she could see much, Takshu, the maidservant who was serving her, said that this month's rations had been delivered. Allowance? Jiang Pengji searched through Lu Lanting's memory and vaguely knew that it was like pocket money. However, when she saw the pile of items in her room, she realized that she had been wrong. The allowance was not just a box of silver or copper coins, but also daily necessities. There were a few sets of the 4 treasures of the study, a dozen bolts of cloth for making new clothes, a few pieces of soft fur, a dozen boxes of incense powder, a few stacks of floral paper, and 5 pieces of bamboo paper. In this era where paper was more valuable than gold, Lu Lanting's monthly allowance was 5 pieces of bamboo paper. Thinking of this, Jiang Pengji narrowed her eyes and said in surprise, "This month's paper looks more special than the previous month's." Takshu did not suspect anything. Instead, she had an expression that said, "Second Langjun has good eyesight." She secretly pinched the rather heavy purse in her sleeve. According to the owner, the craftsmen have experimented and adjusted it several times. The toughness of the bamboo paper is better than before, and the texture is smoother to the touch. Jiang Pengji went over to touch it. The paper was indeed better than the ones on the bookshelf. However, this was not the main point of her concern. Although papermaking technology existed in this era, it was not mature. The quality of the paper produced was not good, and it was not widely used. Therefore, good paper was still expensive. Paper suitable for painting was even more expensive and rare. She found a detail in Lu Lanting's memory. In other families, even the most important children in the family could only get half a blade of paper per month. Moreover, the quality of the paper was not good. Most people used bamboo slips to write. Lu Lanting's monthly supply exceeded the quota, and he even carefully selected the best quality batch. Unless, Jiang Pengji had an idea. It's not easy to make paper in the workshop. 5 blades of paper per month is a little too much. Takshu did not know that she was testing her. She said naturally, the papermaking workshop was left to Second Langjun by the late wife. As long as Second Langjun needs it, even if they don't sell paper to the outside world, they can't be short of money. There is no reason for you to save money for them. Paper workshop. As expected. The veins on Jiang Pengji's forehead twitched. Takshu secretly glanced at Jiang Pengji. She could not help but heave a sigh of relief when she saw that Jiang Pengji's expression was relaxed. Most of the servants in the Lu residence already knew that Lang Jun had ordered his servants to be beaten to death. In the past, they didn't really like Lang Jun, who usually didn't have much of a presence and had a soft personality. However, after witnessing his ruthlessness, they all became obedient. The owner of the workshop had even sent over the monthly quota 2 days in advance. He even gave Takshu some benefits and asked her to put in a good word for him. The workshop was a lucrative job, and the owner did not want to lose it for no good reason. The scale of the workshop was neither too big nor too small, and it produced a limited amount of paper each month. The aristocratic families consumed countless amounts of paper each year. The aristocratic families and merchants would secretly order the bamboo paper produced by the workshop. If they were late, they would not be able to sell it no matter how high the price was. In order to get their share of the annual quota, they had to bribe the owner to get a bigger share. That was something that happened almost every year. It seems that the owner has given you a lot of benefits. It's rare for you to speak up for someone else. Jiang Pengji's gaze fell on Takshu's right hand, which was hidden under her sleeve. Takshu's face was pale. Jiang Pengji smiled and comforted her. It's not easy being a girl. Don't be too afraid. The owner has given you benefits. As long as it's not too much, just accept it. You are my servant. The system secretly complained. If she really wasn't afraid, she wouldn't have said it so bluntly. Jiang Pengji had gotten the clue she wanted. She secretly rubbed her forehead. She was even more certain that there was something wrong with Lu Lanting's mother. Yongyuan Tianjian, why do I feel like there's another woman other than the streamer? Murue Huakai, eh? Really? Maybe the streamer can go and have a historic reunion. User 3216, the person above is too naive. There's no knowing what's in a person's heart. Be careful not to get stabbed. User Ray 11, why do I feel like if there's another woman from another world, the streamer should be merciful if she doesn't stab her to death? Tudu Feichio, I agree with User Ray 11. The streamer's fighting power is at its peak. Jiang Pengji pondered as she scrolled through the bullet screen for inspiration. Then, she heard Takshu's voice. Second Langjun, are you still going to the family school tomorrow? Takshu helped her tidy up the rations and put them in different boxes. Mr. Wei sent someone to ask for leave yesterday. He said that he hasn't fully recovered from his cold and needs to rest for another 3 to 5 days. He doesn't want to spread the illness to Langjun. Lu Lanting's teacher was sick and had asked for leave for 3 days. Jiang Pengji did not expect him to still be ill. The family school? Jiang Pengji furrowed her brows. It was a place where children went to school. As far as she could remember, Lu Lanting did not like going there. Most of the time, she hired a teacher to teach at home. Jiang Pengji wanted to refuse, but many viewers wanted to take a closer look at the ancient family school. Jiang Pengji swallowed her words and said, I'll go tomorrow. I haven't been to the family school for a long time, and I don't know what it's like now. Takshu, remember to ask the butler to prepare some rations for Mr. Wei so that he can rest in peace. Chapter 35. No matter what era it was, a child's education was always a huge expense. Even a landowning family like the Lu family couldn't guarantee that every member of the family was a wealthy local tyrant. Some of the Lu family members who had fallen from grace could only barely maintain their dignity. For a family with an average income, the more children they had, the poorer they were. While they appeared to be doing well on the surface, their quality of life was very worrying. How could they afford to pay for their children's education when they could barely afford to eat? Therefore, the emergence of the family school greatly eased the burden on their children's education. The tutors were all paid for by the family. Many people only needed to send their children to the family school. There were 2 free meals a day, and if the children could not finish it, they could take it away. Every month, the family school would provide them with clean brushes, ink, and bamboo slips. In ancient times, the cost of going to school was very high. The poor could not afford to go to school, and their chances of making a name for themselves were much lower than those of the gentry. The gentry occupied most of the resources, and they were willing to invest those resources in their children. They trained them to read and write so that they would have a sense of belonging to the family. When they grew up and made a name for themselves, the resources would be invested in the education of the next generation. The birth and continuation of a gentry family could not be separated from this virtuous cycle of growth. Jiang Pengji held the scroll. Because of Lu Lanting's memory, reading and recognizing the words were not difficult, but writing was a problem. Not only are the clothes anti-human, but even the writing tools are anti-human. Jiang Pengji tried to hold the brush as if she was facing a formidable enemy, but the soft tip of the brush did not listen to her. What she wrote was like a weird pile of excrement. She tried a few times to no avail, so she threw the pen away and destroyed the shameful evidence. However, it was rare to see Jiang Pengji make a fool of herself. The bullet screen was flooded with 23,333 comments that almost blinded her. Misha Warrior Iun, good and evil will always be repaid. The heavens have their own cycle. Look up if you don't believe me. Who will the heavens forgive? Hashtag pick nose one sorcerer girl offang, woman, beg me. I can teach you hashtag grimace one host v, no. Jiang Pengji muttered to herself, I shouldn't have agreed to go to that damned family school. Takshu, the maidservant, heard the commotion outside and quietly poked her head in. She asked, is something the matter, second Lang Jun? It's nothing, I accidentally dropped the pen. Her lips were almost pressed into a straight line. She looked at the pen lying on the ground as if she was looking at her mortal enemy. Amidst the mocking comments, she sighed and squatted down to pick up the pen. The audience who was rejected did not seem to see Jiang Pengji's rejection. They copied and pasted a large section of the basic essentials of calligraphy from somewhere. Jiang Pengji's eyebrows were knitted into a tight knot. Her right hand mimicked Lu Lanting's grip on the brush in her memory. Then, she combined the basic essentials of the brush strokes on the bullet screen. Her hand trembled as she tried to get closer to Lu Lanting's handwriting. Lu Lanting's memories were like supplementary materials to her. As long as she did not purposely search through them, her memories and emotions would not be affected. However, there was a downside. Jiang Pengji's habits and actions were basically her own when she was not purposely hinting at them. Even if she purposely imitated Lu Lanting, it would still be easy for people who were close to her to see through her. There was not much in the study, but there was an abundance of bamboo paper. She did not mind using it to practice calligraphy. Lu Lanting could only use up half a month's worth of bamboo paper. She saved up the rest and stored them in boxes. At first, she was not used to writing with a brush. The tip of the brush was too soft, and if she was not careful, her handwriting would become very ugly. But after a few tries, she gradually got the hang of it. She used her ability to control her arm strength and slowly gained experience. After practicing on a few pieces of paper, her handwriting was 50% similar to Lu Lanting's. It made sense. She had practiced according to Lu Lanting's memory. Of course, it was similar. The audience watched in disbelief as the streamer's handwriting changed from lying down to standing up. Why did she become a streamer if she was so good at learning? Some of the audience members who had learned calligraphy told them how difficult it was for them to practice calligraphy. Sometimes, their arms and wrists were so swollen that they could not move. They complained, "Streamer, you're not human." Although she had learned some things, her handwriting habits could not be changed in a short period of time. Jiang Pengji looked at the sky outside and placed a pile of bamboo slips on the table. She then took out some bamboo paper and began to copy. Misha Zhanyuan, illiterate people. What are these words? Pijing Zhangjian, I can vaguely recognize that the streamer is copying the Analects of Confucius. I remember that ancient books were very expensive. If the streamer's family has a collection of Analects of Confucius, they must be well off and have a high social status. Jiang Pengji saw this while she was copying and suddenly replied. Host V, yes, the Lu family is doing well. If I were a commoner, I would probably be in a bandit's stronghold, broadcasting how to tear people apart with my bare hands. Or I would be traversing the mountains and teaching you how to survive in the wild. Jian Luo Zenshan, I can understand that you're broadcasting how to survive in the wild, but what the hell is tearing bandits apart with your bare hands? Host V, this ignorant ancient era was very chaotic. Hejin County is considered orderly, but there are still many bandits nearby who specialize in robbing passing merchants for a living. A lone woman is simply a fat piece of meat for them. So, if the bandits came to her, Jiang Pengji would not let them go, because they would not let her go. Just like what happened in the bandits' stronghold, those bandits would not let go of so many delicate noble ladies. In their eyes, they were just tools to vent their lust. They were not human beings. What was the use of talking about morality and righteousness with them? What was the use of begging? The only thing that could be of use was one's own brain and hands. Host V, you can either be humiliated by dozens of men in the bandits' stronghold and become their tool to vent their lust. If you're lucky, you can get pregnant. Maybe you can live for a few more days and give birth to a child who will become a bandit in the future. Or, you can only raise your sword and let them die. Jiang Pengji's pen paused for a moment before she put it down again and continued. Her expression softened a little. Host V, I know there are many things that you can't accept, but you're just spectators. I'm a participant. They're just spectators. If they don't want to watch, they can just leave. It's just a matter of time. But she, Jiang Pengji, had to walk her own path in life instead of relying on these onlookers. After copying the contents of the bamboo slips, Jiang Pengji planned to revise Lu Lanting's other skills. At that moment, the silent system suddenly spoke. Chapter 36. Jiang Pengji frowned and asked, What do you mean? The system said, It's something like a skill book that allows you to quickly learn a certain skill. The system shop has just released it. At that moment, Jiang Pengji saw a few moving icons on the side of the huge streaming screen in front of her. However, she had always been wary of this unknown system, and she was not that curious. She did not study it at all. Opening the system's shop menu, a brand new interface immediately popped up. There were many product icons on it. Zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, embroidery, sewing, tea making, swordsmanship, saber techniques, leg techniques, horse riding. There were 4 different labels behind each skill: elementary, intermediate, advanced, and ascendant. 4 different levels of skills required different amounts of popularity points. The highest level, Ascend, required a massive amount of popularity points. Fortunately, the basic entry requirement was 1,000 popularity points. With her current popularity points, she could easily exchange for 1. Jiang Pengji furrowed her brows. If she exchanged for these and learned them, would she get a beginner's ability? The system said, I saw that the host was having a hard time learning how to write just now, so I used my personal treasury to open up the shop interface for the host. If the system could be concretized, she felt that she could see the system's fawning face saying, Hurry up and praise me. Jiang Pengji laughed to herself and said, I think you're just eyeing the popularity points in my account, right? The system was non-committal. Popularity points were gold and silver to it. If it could earn a sum of money from doing business, why not? Jiang Pengji looked at the tempting items on the interface of the store. She rolled her eyes and closed it in the blink of an eye. I think calligraphy is quite interesting. It's good for me to practice it slowly. You should continue looking at the popularity points in my account. F***CK. Jiang Pengji said naturally, good steel should be used on the blade's edge. It's useless to exchange it now. It's better to save it for when it's needed someday. Who knows, it might be of unexpected use. The system snorted. There's no need to be so thrifty. Just open a live stream every day. As long as the maximum number of viewers reaches 3,000, you'll get at least 1,500 popularity points a day. That's more than enough to exchange for a book. There's no need to work so hard to learn. If he was rewarded by a nouveau riche, he would accumulate popularity points even faster. Jiang Pengji looked as if she had seen through him. In the end, you're still trying to entice me to stream diligently, aren't you? However, the live stream limit is always 3,000 viewers. Hey, don't tell me that I need to exchange popularity points to increase the limit. The host is truly wise and mighty. The system was almost about to wag its tail. A level 1 host requires 100,000 popularity points to advance to level 2. As the host's level increased, the maximum number of viewers in the room would also increase. Naturally, the speed at which he accumulated popularity points would also increase. Jiang Pengji secretly rubbed her brows. The system's tricks were too deep. The host can only upgrade his level with popularity points. The system thought for a moment and said, not really. There is another channel, but it depends on face. As a perfect plain live broadcast system, there were naturally many ways to play it. It was impossible to only have a single boring live broadcast. Jiang Pengji guided him, what channel? The system has 4 live broadcast modes. The first is the free live broadcast mode. Just like what the host is doing now, you can broadcast whatever you want. The second is the semi-interactive live broadcast mode. The host selects some live broadcast content for the audience to vote. Then, the live broadcast content with the highest number of votes. After the host completes the live broadcast, depending on the audience's satisfaction, the host can obtain 3 levels of gold, silver, and bronze treasure chests. After opening the treasure chests, the host can obtain random rewards, including a free card to upgrade the host's level. Jianghu listened and nodded to herself, then signaled for the system to continue. The second is the fully interactive live broadcast mode. The audience selects the live broadcast content and then selects the items to vote. Of course, the content must be within the scope stipulated in the contract. It cannot be too excessive and focus on entertainment. At the same time, the host can obtain treasure chests and open cards. The last is the designated live broadcast mode. A tycoon sets the live broadcast content. When the host completes the live broadcast, not only will the host receive the reward from the tycoon, but also a gold treasure chest. When the system mentioned the last live broadcast mode, one could hear the sound of saliva being sucked in. Jianghu raised her brows. You can erase the last unscrupulous one. The system retorted unhappily, who said so? My previous host loved this live broadcast mode the most. Jianghu curled the corner of her mouth mockingly. Obviously, I'm not one of them. The system still wanted to struggle. How do I know you won't like it if I don't give it a try? I don't think those who are truly rich would mind such a small expenditure. Every day, they would throw some money around and issue a mission, just like fishing with a hook. Using this method, they would slowly train the host into what they want. Tell me, what's the difference between the last live broadcast mode and dog training? The system was a little stunned. Its host was about to go crazy, so it quickly tried to salvage the situation. Dear host, don't be angry. These modes are all preset. I'm just relaying it. Moreover, these live broadcast modes require the host to be willing. There is absolutely no forced buying or selling. The system wanted to cry but had no tears. How unlucky could it be to have met such a difficult host who would always give other people a hard time, and was always scowling at others. The system also needed human rights, and it needed to be treated fairly and fairly. They had only been together for 2 days, but the system felt like 2 years had passed. It couldn't go on like this. Jianghu was too lazy to care about the system's thoughts. She had a comfortable sleep, and it was a dreamless night. The next day, on the way to the family school in the carriage, she started the live broadcast on time. Viewers entered the room one after another. They were all viewers who had subscribed to the room. As soon as Jianghu started the live broadcast, they received a notification and could enter the room by clicking on the live broadcast room number. Host V, good morning, everyone, *********. After Jianghu greeted them, many viewers said good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to her one after another. It seemed that there were many people with jet lag in this small live broadcast room. She was bored, so she asked the viewers for their opinions. Host V, do you have any live broadcast content that you prefer to watch? Todo fecho, host, you can learn the 4 arts, I can secretly learn from you. Then I can go out and show off. De Jianghu Furan, I can read stories. I don't know what stories were like in ancient times. Will there be overbearing scholars who fall in love with me? Overbearing princes who fall in love with me? Overbearing masters who fall in love with me? Even if it's an overbearing county magistrate who falls in love with me, I don't mind. 23333 Deng Hai Guangzhu, go to brothels, drink wine, hug courtesans. Then have sex with girls. Jianghu, young people in that dimension, do you know that your thoughts are very dangerous? Chapter 37. The Liu family school was not big, and there were only 20 students. They ranged in age from 3 to 15. The size of the school, the number of students, and the age of the students were very different from what Jianghu had imagined. She could not help but think back to her school days. De Jianghu Furan, is this the ancient classroom? The conditions are so bad, and there are so few students. I wonder what the teachers are like. Dung Hai Kwangju, this is good enough, okay? The literacy rate in ancient times was very low. There were very few people who could study, and the expenses were very high. The host is in the family school, and the conditions are very good. Most of the expenses are covered by the family. After all, whether it was the cost of hiring a teacher or the cost of writing brushes, ink, and paper for learning, the cost was not something an ordinary family could afford. Jiang Pengji randomly picked a table and sat down. She took out the bamboo paper that her maid, Takshu, and Xuanmei had cut out. She practiced her calligraphy as if there was no one else around. The other students took advantage of the absence of the teacher to review what they had learned the day before. Sorceress Afeng, 23333. No matter what era it is, I feel like the habit of studying in the morning will never change. Misha Warrior Ahuan, yes, it's full of the feeling of studying in the morning. The other students tried their best to get a seat closest to the teacher. Only Jiang Pengji's table was at the back, which made her stand out. Of course, what made her stand out from the crowd was not her location, but the school supplies she used to practice calligraphy. Most of the students could only carry heavy bamboo slips. Jiang Pengji was the only one who used bamboo paper, which was very expensive. Her calligraphy was the same as before, and there was no improvement at all. To the other students, it was a waste of God's gift. Oh, I haven't seen Cousin Shi for more than a year. Why is your calligraphy still the same? You haven't improved. Finally, someone was willing to be the leader and help some people say what they wanted to say in their hearts. Jiang Pengji had to stop writing, and she looked up at the person who had spoken. It was the son of Lu Lanting's father. Jiang Pengji had seen Lu Lanting's memories, and she knew why she did not like to come to the family school. If it were her, she would not have come either. To avoid gossip in the clan, Lu Lanting attended the family school before she turned 8 instead of hiring a tutor to study at home. Lu Lanting had entered the family school at the age of 4, and by the time she was 8, she had become more and more taciturn. She looked at others with fear, and she was also afraid of interacting with others. The root cause was the family school, or rather, the bullies in the family school. Although these brats were young, they also had the ability to flatter those above them and step on those below them. It was as if they were born with it. As a child, Lu Lanting was very skinny and shy. She blushed when she spoke too much. To some naughty children, she was the easiest target to bully. They did not have to worry about being discovered if they secretly ostracized her. At that time, Lu Lanting came to school in a different outfit. She also used the best brushes, ink, paper, and inkstones to study. She was so different from the other children of the Lu family that it was inevitable that some of the children of the Lu family who were struggling to make ends meet would feel uncomfortable. What if it was unfair? Of course, they would find a way to balance it out. They were all children, and it was normal to have some friction. However, they were not stupid. They bullied Lu Lanting, but they did not make it too obvious. In the beginning, they only bullied her softly, distanced themselves from her, and said some nasty things from time to time. Lu Lanting was still young, and the second lady had protected her too well. The silly girl did not realize it. Her inaction provoked the other students. They pushed her aside at first, and then they snatched the brushes, ink, and inkstones. Then, they insulted her, saying that she was raised by a wife, and that she would be abandoned when the second lady had a son or daughter. In the end, it became a bloody incident. Yes, a bloody incident. 8-year-old Lu Lanting was pushed into a pond near the family school. She even knocked her head on the ground. At that time, the bedridden second madam heard the news. Despite her illness, she directly bombarded the teachers and the parents of the naughty children. She even angrily withdrew the financial aid to the family school, forcing the parents to apologize in person. That's right. Although the brushes and ink used by the clan were purchased with money from the clan, in accordance with the principle of being a family, those expensive brushes and ink were purchased in bulk from the second wife's dowry workshop. The quality was good, and the price was quite discounted. It was said that the children were young and did not mean to hurt others, but that was not an excuse for them to hurt others without apologizing. Jiang Pengji narrowed her eyes. She had only seen the person in front of her a few times during the festive season. He was one of the naughty children who had ostracized Lu Lanting. Also, was this fellow mocking her words? Tudu Feichio, ha ha ha, streamer, your words are being mocked. They're red and dazed. Ye Sai Gao, streamer, look at your face. I've only been learning for a few hours. Jiang Pengji glanced at the live stream screen. Her action was seen as arrogant disregard by the other party, and she was immediately put on the spot. With the intention of humiliating him, he sat down in front of her. He scolded her, but his face showed some excitement. Cousin Shi, since you've hired a teacher to teach at home, you should naturally learn from the teachers. You're always playing around and don't know what's good for you. If second uncle comes back to teach cousin Shi, he'll be so angry that he'll fall. Jiang Pengji glanced at him and said slowly, it's okay. Only with comparison can we know who's better and who's worse. Father won't blame you. Huh? What did she mean? Not only did the cousin not understand, but the audience watching the live stream was also confused. Cousin. Jiang Pengji continued to speak slowly, it's only March. Mosquitoes aren't that big, what? The cousin didn't understand at first, but when he saw where Jiang Pengji was looking, his cheeks suddenly turned red. He pulled up his collar unnaturally and glared at Jiang Pengji with a look of embarrassment and annoyance. Cousin, you look handsome. I think your brother is very satisfied with you. Jiang Pengji blinked under the cousin's gaze and said meaningfully, if you're not feeling well, it's better to ask the teacher for leave as soon as possible. After all, it's extremely rude to be restless in the teacher's class, not to mention sitting down in front of others. After she finished speaking, Jiang Pengji took the book box that she had just packed away and sat down on another mat. Coincidentally, the teacher arrived late and saw the cousin sitting on the floor in a daze. He was so angry that his beard almost flew up. You're rude. Master. Teacher, Jiang Pengji was not affected at all. Instead, she opened the bamboo scroll and listened to the teacher's lecture while reading the bullet screen. Ye Sai Gao, can someone explain what just happened? I saw that cousin sitting down to lecture the host for no reason, and then the teacher came over and scolded him. Oh my god, this was the first time I knew that an old pedant from ancient times could scold people so harshly and to the point. Chapter 38. The audience was not the only one who was dumbfounded, but there were also a lot of super perverted veterans who came to their senses. Jiang Pengji looked at the bullet screen and laughed. That master was famous for being an old-fashioned scholar in the Lu family. To put it bluntly, he was an extreme turtle. The old man was very particular about etiquette. He would correct anyone who sat in the wrong position, let alone in front of him. Even in the ancient times, which naughty kid would not be beaten up if he took off his pants and walked around? Not to mention, that cousin's age was already considered a grown man in this era. Tudu Feichio, 2333. I understand. That little boy might have had sex last night. The host kindly let him go back to rest. He had indeed had sex, but the person he was having sex with was not a girl, but a proper man. Jiang Pengji was very sensitive to smells. When the cousin got close to her, she smelled another person's scent on him. That kind of smell required a period of close contact to be so strong. Unfortunately, she had smelled it before. It was the manservant who served the cousin when he was studying. Apart from that, there was a very faint afterlife smell on him. Plus, there was a little strawberry on his neck, and his walking posture was a little unnatural. TSK, TSK. She could not help but sigh. Children in ancient times were really *king open-minded. Wutian, I understand. This is what my party says, senior gay, start from a baby. 23333. Looking at the bullet screen that was getting dirtier and dirtier, Jiang Pengji, who had always been dirty and violent, smiled without saying a word. Bring my pao lai, I'll just treat it as a joke, but it's so disgusting to actually do it. Jiang Pengji's attitude towards this was very open-minded. In her era, same-sex marriage was legal. Host V, it's not disgusting. In this era, it's a good thing to be brothers. It's even fashionable. As the saying goes, as long as the red flag at home doesn't fall, colorful flags will flutter in the wind outside. Having a concubine on the left and a gay man on the right, talking about romance and poetry was a very common phenomenon. Jiang Pengji had searched through Lu Lanting's memories. That was indeed the case. Men preferred fair skin, and they dressed in brightly colored clothes. Not only did they have to put on makeup every day, but some of the eccentrics had evolved to the point where they were too ashamed to leave the house without applying makeup. Bring me Pao Lai, but streamer, in this world, you have to get married when you're of age. It's normal for men to be gay. What if you marry the wrong person? In modern times, there were a lot of same-sex wives, but at least they could choose to divorce. In ancient times, same-sex wives were not so easy, right? No matter how disgusted he was, he could only pinch his nose and live with it for the rest of his life. Jiang Pengji had never thought about this problem, because in her mind, there was no concept of a marriage. She rolled her eyes and thought about how to deal with the audience. Host V, no matter how delicate and beautiful a man is, his gender is not right for me. I don't even have sexual interest. Everyone fell silent. In the next second, the system prompted the audience, Yuri Saigao, to reward 520 lovers' hearts. Lovers' hearts cost the same as lollipops, but the latter had a pink heart symbol. Tudu Feichio, it's so exciting. I like such an honest and cruel streamer. The system prompted the audience, Tudu Feichio, to reward 520 lovers' hearts. Most of the rewards were lovers' hearts or lollipops, and the system's notifications were drowned out. Jiang Pengji, not only did she have a generation gap with the ancient people, but she also had a generation gap with the modern humans watching the stream. She did not seem to have said anything that touched their sensitive spots, did she? She herself was dumbfounded by this reward. The system suppressed its excitement and poked Jiang Pengji. Host, do you see now? Jiang Pengji raised her eyebrows and asked in her mind, see what? The emotions of the audience need to be aroused. As long as someone starts it at a critical moment, the other audience members will follow suit and reward generously. So, do you want to hire me to be your water army and reward you occasionally? When the system said that, Jiang Pengji could imagine a smiley face with a flattering look, winking at her. Jiang Pengji rejected it immediately. No way. The system was angry. When could its host have the self-awareness of a streamer? This was a very common method in the industry. It was not fake. Small investments and high returns. Why didn't she agree to it? A streamer, in addition to her own strength, also needed the cooperation of a team. Otherwise, did the rich people come out of nowhere? Wasn't it the water army and the rich people throwing bricks to attract jade? They lured the rich people who wanted to compete with them and made them willing to pay for it step by step. While she was chatting with the system, Jiang Pengji, who was suspected of being absent-minded, was caught by the master. Lu Shi, repeat what I just said to you. The headmaster wore a serious face. If it were any other day, he would have reprimanded a student who was so distracted. However, since the student was Jiang Pengji, he could not bear to do so. Wasn't the kidnapping case that caused a storm in Hejin County 2 days ago the reason why Jiang Pengji was so distracted? Jiang Pengji stood up and thought for a while. She repeated the master's words without missing a single detail. The headmaster twirled his beard and felt satisfied. He asked leisurely, so, what do you think of this? Some people were born to memorize, like Jiang Pengji. She had a photographic memory and amazing observation skills. However, memorizing a paragraph did not mean that she could understand it. Given Lu Lanting's status, people had high hopes for Lu Shi's only legitimate son. The article that the master had just said was written by a famous scholar. The content was not bad, but it had nothing to do with romance. The topic was the hidden danger at the northern border of Dongqing. Would the three tribes of the northern borderline try to cozy up to them, or would they try to intimidate them? The scholar felt that the three tribes of the northern borderline had been fighting against Dongqing for many years. Both sides had suffered heavy losses. The people at the border of Dongqing were in dire straits. The royal court of the three tribes already had the intention to negotiate. They had hinted many times to marry their beloved daughters to Dongqing. Why not go with the flow? If Dongqing accepted the negotiation, both sides would temporarily cease hostilities and recuperate. However, when it came to negotiations, the only way to gain the upper hand was to bring the opponent to the negotiating table. Those who are not of our tribe must have different intentions. The three tribes of the northern borderline are ambitious. How can they be appeased by small favors? What was the use of negotiating without a winner or loser? Jiang Pengji smiled faintly and enunciated her words clearly. Dongqing and the three tribes of the northern borderline have been in a stalemate at the border for several years. Both sides have won and lost, but Dongqing has never been at a disadvantage. If we take advantage of the situation to negotiate now, how will the sacrificed soldiers feel? This is the worst plan. It will only benefit the enemy while harming ourselves. But the scholar spoke bluntly about negotiating for peace. His intentions are damning. The master's gentle face froze. He did not expect Jiang Pengji to have the guts to criticize the scholar. The other students were also in an uproar. They had been discussing the article, but they expressed their opinions in a euphemistic manner. Their attitudes were ambiguous. They were neither in favor of war nor in favor of negotiating for peace. Each had their own reasons. No one dared to stand firmly on one side. Chapter 39. Jiang Pengji acted as if she did not see the master's ugly expression. She suddenly picked up the bamboo slips on the table, flipped through them, and said, "I read an interesting story yesterday. It was about 8 years ago, when Master Yuanjing went to the northern borderline to lobby and protected the 3 cities of the northern borderline by himself." Speaking of this, the master seemed to have thought of something, and his face turned pale. Jiang Pengji threw the bamboo slips on the ground and said loudly, "Peace talks. The 3 cities have not been returned. How can we talk? Do you remember 12 years ago, when the former emperor passed away and the new emperor succeeded the throne, the 3 tribes of the northern borderline took advantage of the turbulence in Dongqing to attack the 6 cities at the border and slaughter more than 100,000 people? This battle has been going on for 3 whole years, and countless soldiers have died. 6 cities are still in the hands of the northern borderline. On the day of the peace talks, the 3 tribes of the northern borderline came with the conditions to force Dongqing to cede 3 more cities, bow their heads, and pay annual tribute. None of the scholars in Dongqing would ever forget this incident. It was a humiliation that could never be washed away in their entire lives. When the royal family of Dongqing advocated for peace talks, there were many strong Confucian scholars who protested to the death. In the end, Master Yuanjing fought with the barbarians of the 3 tribes and got back 3 of the cities after much difficulty. Of course, outsiders like us don't know the situation at that time. We only know that the barbarians of the northern borderline were only willing to return 3 cities. The other 3 cities were still in the hands of the 3 tribes. The people of the 3 cities became the 9th-class untouchables in the eyes of the barbarians of the 3 tribes. Do you still remember? For the 3 cities, the friction between Dongqing and the 3 tribes of the northern borderline at the border had not stopped for years. If we continue to negotiate now, the 3 cities will never be returned. That great Confucian is so shameless. Just a few words, a few curses, and a few empty and stupid words, and he's actually willing to hand over the 3 cities. Peace talks? If you want to talk, we can talk about it after the 3 cities are returned. It was ridiculous that the great Confucian scholar thought that he could give away the Empress concubine and hope that she could enlighten the barbarians of the 3 tribes of the northern borderline. It was such a noble task. Why not sacrifice and send all the women in his family for peace talks? Of course, in addition to this, there is another important reason why we can't negotiate. It's the 4 factions of Nanman. Jiang Pengji had seen the great universal geographical map hanging in the study yesterday. As one of the 5 countries, Dongqing's geographical location was somewhat awkward. Not only was it connected to the 3 tribes of the northern borderline, but it also had a junction with the 4 tribes of Nanman. Unfortunately, these 2 places were full of aggressive tough bones. If they were not completely destroyed, the other party would rise from the dead sooner or later. Their vitality was as strong as the insect race. We absolutely can't give the 3 tribes of the north borderline any time to breathe. Once the peace talks start, we'll give them enough time to recuperate. It'll undoubtedly be nurturing a tiger that will invite disaster. When the time comes, the 3 tribes of the north borderline and the 4 factions of Nanman will join forces to attack Dongqing. That would be a direct checkmate. Nonsense. The 4 factions of Nanman are now at war with Nanxing Kingdom. Why would they care about Dongqing? Fight? Jiang Pengji smiled as she looked at the young man who had spoken. Nanxing will be utterly defeated soon. There were 5 countries in the world, Dongqing, Nanxing, Xichang, Beiyuan, and Zhongzhou, which was located in the center of the Central Plains. Dongqing was not the weakest, but it was not the strongest either. Nanxing had been at war with the 4 factions of Nanman for the past 2 years. In the past 2 months, there had been many reports of victory, but it would be over soon. De Zhuangzhu Furan. I feel like I've learned history for nothing. QAQ, so the streamer has traveled through an imaginary dynasty. I just wanted to show off and talk about it, but I was slapped in the face in the next second. It hurts so much. Huojiajago. It's not really imaginary. It can only be said that it's another dimension with a different historical development trajectory. There are traces to follow. Shou Shirtu Guan, it's definitely not our ancient times. Otherwise, it would feel like a spoiler. The unknown variables are more interesting. Cafeteria Daffin Auntie, am I the only one who cares about Master Yuanjing's setting? Why are you so sure that Nanxing will lose? Although Nanxing was also Dongqing's enemy, they were still of the Yan and Huang lineages. The 4 factions of Nanman were foreign tribes to them. Because there are too many ignorant people like you. Jiang Pengji had always liked to stand straight. When she lifted her chin and closed her eyes, she gave off an oppressive feeling, as if she was looking down on all living things. In less than 2 months, Nanxing will lose. Just wait and see. When the time came, it might not be as simple as ceding 3 cities or giving the emperor's concubine a marriage alliance. Lu Lanting was naturally shy, but she was not a girl who liked to submit to her fate. She loved to read news about the world. Occasionally, she would disguise herself and go to the tea houses and taverns to listen to the news. That was usually the place where news circulated and gossip spread. Jiang Pengji had her memories. She had glanced at the great universal geographical map hanging in the study room and knew the geographical locations of the 5 kingdoms. From what she could see, Nanxing was indeed very dangerous. She had also read some of the news that Lu Lanting had transcribed, so she was not completely ignorant of the news. In fact, it was not just Nanxing. Jiang Pengji was not optimistic about the current Dongqing. According to the information that Lu Lanting had gathered, if Dongqing agreed to the peace talks, she was afraid that within 10 years, there would be a huge military disaster. Jiang Pengji bent down to pick up the bamboo slips that she had thrown on the ground. She casually flicked the ash off. The old master was very angry at first. She had slandered the great scholar in public and said such harsh words. It was easy to make people feel disgusted. If the great scholar heard about what happened that day, Jiang Pengji might even make things difficult for her when she entered the officialdom. However, listening to her solemn vow, the old master was a little hesitant because he himself did not agree to the peace talks. As long as he was a scholar, he would always have a sense of pride. Dongqing inherited the Xia lineage and called itself a kingdom of heaven. Why would it be willing to bow down to the barbarians? Looking at the group of confused students, the old master's temples ached. He sighed to himself. As expected of Lu Shi's son. Both father and son were troublesome. Your cousin is quite knowledgeable. What he said was not without reason. It's a pity that most of the important officials in the court are in favor of peace talks. The government is also interested in negotiating with the royal court of the 3 tribes of the northern borderline. They hope that the northern borderline will marry the Empress concubine to the second prince. Outside the school, Feng Jin, who was dressed in a white and green robe, looked at the scene from afar. He had an indescribable expression on his face. Lanting used to be very reserved and gentle. After the ordeal, he's showing signs of revealing his abilities. The person who spoke was Lu Lanting's cousin, Lu Heng. He was the eldest son of Lu Lanting's father's biological brother. If there's a chance, I'd like to have a good chat with him. Feng Jin looked away. Was that really a girl in the house? Lu Heng said, "What's so difficult about that? Call him over and I'll introduce him to you." Lu Heng knew Feng Jin's background. If his cousin could befriend him, that would be the best. Feng Jin thanked him, but he felt a little uneasy. Jianghu had left a deep impression on him that night. However, it was rare to find someone who shared the same opinion as him and had such a tacit understanding with him. He was secretly looking forward to their meeting later. He wondered if Jianghu would be surprised if she knew his identity. Feng Jin smiled and said meaningfully, "Yaoji, you may not know this, but your cousin is a wonderful person." Chapter 40. Therefore, Jianghu saw such a scene that aroused wild and fanciful imagination. If her eyes had not told her that the relationship between the two was very normal, she might have suspected that the era had opened up to the point where everyone was gay. Watching the two of them exchange glances, with a tacit understanding that others couldn't intervene, she sat down quietly and became a spectator. "Lanting, let me introduce you to someone." Lu Heng had always cared about his cousin. He worked very hard to have such a good opportunity to introduce his friend to his cousin. "Cousin Heng, there's no need to introduce me. I know this person. Huayu is so mischievous. Why did you make a fool out of my honest and simple cousin?" Jianghu glanced at Feng Jin, who was sitting at the head of the table. She hadn't seen him for 2 days. The guy who had been chased for thousands of miles and had to kill his beloved pet to appease his hunger was pretty decent after he cleaned himself up. "Huayu?" Lu Heng was startled. That was Feng Jin's courtesy name. They were so familiar with each other that they could call each other by their courtesy names. Feng Jin innocently opened his eyes. It was Yaoji who didn't give me time to tell the truth. How was I deliberately making a fool out of him? Lu Heng was speechless. Feng Jin put down the tea and couldn't wait to get to the point. "Let's put the reminiscing aside for now. I heard what you said outside the room. I thought it was quite interesting and reasonable. If that's the case, guess which prince the royal family of the northern borderline is interested in?" Jianghu was a little disinterested. She couldn't get her spirits up for something so obvious. "The first prince is the crown prince. That official isn't so muddle-headed. Why would he let a foreign princess take the crown prince's wife? Moreover, the first prince has all his wives and concubines. He also has many concubines in the eastern palace. He also has many children. Even if the northern borderline princess was very capable, she wouldn't be able to do much if she married the crown prince. Secondly, the third prince's mother is the daughter of the Feng clan, an aristocratic family. They value bloodlines very much. If he marries the princess of the northern borderline and has a son mixed with foreign blood, how can the Feng clan accept this grandson?" After she finished speaking, Jianghu's eyes scanned Feng Jin's body. Her stare made Feng Jin's hair stand. Finally, according to the rumors, the fourth prince's birth mother died in a strange way. Since he was young, he has been disliked by the people in the palace. The emperor is always vigilant against him. If he were to marry the princess of the northern frontier, he would have a powerful and influential in-laws. How could the emperor feel comfortable? Feng Jin nodded as he listened. The content of Jianghu's analysis was similar to what his father had said, but the style was a little different. "So, Jiang Pengji looked at her 5 fingers and smiled. His mother was born in a merchant family. He doesn't have many connections in the imperial court. He only has a few subordinates and the emperor likes him. That's perfect. This was a judgment from the perspective of the Dongqing emperor. From the perspective of the Beijiang royal court, the second prince was also the most suitable. He was stupid and easy to manipulate. The second prince, whose brain was half muscle and half hay, who was impulsive, reckless, and easy to bully, had been chosen. Feng Jin was speechless. The second prince was not well liked by others. His father commented that he was uncultured and pretentious. Jiang Pengji directly criticized him as worthless. However, although the two had different styles, the final conclusion was very similar. The second prince was useless and had been abandoned. Thinking of his father, Feng Jin could not help but ask, Lanting, if you were the king of the Beijiang royal court, what would you do? Jiang Pengji blinked and curled her lips into a smile, which made Feng Jin feel even more uneasy. If I were the king of the Beijiang royal court, of course I would sleep with the princess of Dongqing and have a taste of the gentleness of a Han woman. Then I would send my ambitious daughter to the second prince's manor. After this peace talk, the princess of the northern frontier would at least get the position of a princess consort. Then I would provoke the brainless but ambitious second prince. Jiang Pengji was too lazy to chew on words. When she was in school, she had always passed history and culture classes with a passing grade. The second prince is a very interesting person, but one can't blame one's parents for being stupid. If used well, it is a sharp knife that can stab whoever it points at. After all, isn't killing one's father and brother an old skill passed down by the Dongqing royal family? What's more, the second prince has always been at odds with the Count of Zhenbei, who is guarding the border of Dongqing. As long as the conflict between the two sides is aggravated. The emperor has been coveting the military seal in the Count of Zhenbei's manor for a long time. He has long wanted to get rid of the donkey after it has outlived its usefulness. Once the peace talk starts, Dongqing will not have the pressure from the border. The Count of Zhenbei, who controls most of the troops in Dongqing, will be in danger. It was not that there were no wise monarchs who were suspicious, but the emperor of Dongqing was only left with suspicion. When the birds are gone, the fine bough is hidden. When the cunning rabbit is dead, the hound is cooked. Although she felt that the words of the ancient times were unreasonable and anti-human, some of the words were quite reasonable. As long as there is a problem with the Count of Zhenbei's residence, the northern borderline will immediately turn hostile. When that time comes, I think the courageous and resourceful princess of the northern borderline will achieve her goal and completely drive a wedge between the second prince and the emperor. Maybe she can even make some other small moves. Jiang Pengji's words did not give the emperor of Dongqing any face at all. She even brought up the old history of him killing his father and brother. After the chaos of the 16 countries, from the unification of Xia to the division of Xia by the 5 countries, the monarch's authority was challenged several times. His control was greatly reduced, and the aristocratic families developed to their peak. Nowadays, scholars came forth in large numbers and hundreds of schools of thought contended. Speech was freer than ever before. If these words were said in other times, it might bring about a fatal disaster, but at this time, it was not as serious as insulting the aristocratic families on the streets. Therefore, Lu Heng and Feng Jin's expressions only changed slightly after Jiang Pengji said that. After Feng Jin heard this, he sighed. My father thinks so too. If we talk about peace, it is a small matter to force the people to remonstrate with death or to condemn by word and pen. I'm afraid that the Count of Zhenbei's residence will be feared by the emperor. When that time comes, the royal court of the northern borderline will use a knife to kill us and get rid of the thorn in their eyes. Speaking of this, it was necessary to mention the current trend of Dongqing, to respect the literate and suppress the military. The founding emperor of Dongqing was a traitor of the previous dynasty. He betrayed and killed his lord, which was why he had everything he had today. Perhaps they were afraid of this in their bones, so they were very strict with the generals and vigorously supported the literate. Generation after generation, the generals became more and more useless. Now, the Count of Zhenbei's residence was the only thing that Dongqing could use. If it was also courted by incompetent teammates, then it would be terrible. Jiang Pengji said seriously, this is hard intelligence, it can't be saved. Unexpectedly, Feng Jin was very studious and asked seriously, what is hard intelligence? At this time, the audience watching the live stream could not help but send out bullet screen comments one after another. Wufa Wu Tian, red hot, dazed, hard intelligence means acquired cerebral palsy, it can't be saved 2333. De Zhuangzhu Furen, what you said just now, if it was in a TV series, it would be enough to exterminate 9 generations. I didn't expect my elder cousin and the handsome young man to accept it so calmly. Especially the elder cousin's gaze, it was as if he wanted to drag his naughty child back to the kennel. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm dying of laughter. I've already taken a screenshot, new emoji GTE. Chapter 41. Jiang Pengji was stunned for a moment, then said mysteriously, being mentally retarded is an illness related to the brain. It is stubborn and difficult to cure. Feng Jin did not understand at first, but when he thought about what Jiang Pengji had said, he suddenly understood that the girl was mocking him again. Although the authority of the monarchs in this era was becoming less and less dignified and was being hindered by the aristocratic families in various aspects, in the end, it was still the emperor who reigned supreme. Feng Jin wasn't very old, but he sternly admonished, Nian Lanting is still young and insensible. Just treat these words as the words of a child. There's no harm in listening to them. However, if you enter the officialdom in the future and continue to speak so carelessly, there will be people who will make things difficult for you. Lu Heng was naturally willing to raise both his hands and feet in support of this point. As his cousin, he was very worried about his unruly cousin. He had originally wanted to teach him a lesson in private when he got home, but Feng Jin took the initiative to point it out. It saved him the trouble of arguing with Jiang Pengji. Jiang Pengji smiled without saying a word. She had no concept of entering the bureaucracy and did not care about it. After that, Feng Jin deliberately asked some questions about her studies. It was not difficult, and Jiang Pengji relied on Lu Lanting's memory to answer 70% of the questions. Feng Jin suddenly changed the topic and said to Lu Heng, forgive me for being blunt. Although the family school is not bad, Lanting's studies here will be delayed. The family school itself was a huge investment with no short-term returns. It was like a bottomless pit. Most of the time, it was to take care of the poor clansmen who were short of money. The teachers were enough to teach the children, but if they wanted to further their studies, they had to go outside to study. Jiang Pengji said, I've only studied in the family school for a few days. I've hired a teacher to teach me at home. But I'm not talented enough to live up to the teacher's teachings. Not only did I not learn much from him, but I also made a fool of myself. Lu Heng listened and agreed with Feng Jin's words. He had always felt that his cousin was intelligent and sensible, but he was a bit introverted and did not like to talk or play with others. His studies were mediocre. It must have been due to his previous experience in the family school and the lack of guidance from the teachers. Feng Jin continued to ask, may I know who the teacher is? Jiang Pengji did not understand, but before she could answer, Lu Heng said, it's Wei Yuan, Wei Gongchao. Jiang Pengji's current master's surname was Wei, and his first name was Yuan. In Lu Lanting's memory, the teacher was very strict and would scold her for the slightest mistake. The young girl was afraid of him. No wonder. So it's Mr. Wei Yuan. Feng Jin had a look of understanding on his face. He was young, but he was familiar with all the famous Confucian scholars, not to mention Wei Yuan, who was talented but resigned due to his personality. In his eyes, Wei Yuan was a wonderful person who would fire his superiors if he didn't agree with him. He spoke bluntly and shook his head. Mr. Wei Yuan is indeed talented, but he is not suitable for Lanting. If possible, it would be better for you to find another teacher. Based on that night alone, Feng Jin could tell that Jiang Pengji was not someone who would be content with the status quo. Learning from the rigid and strict Wei Yuan, the master and disciple pair would sooner or later fall out due to disagreements or other reasons, unless one of them was willing to compromise. But was that even possible? Wei Gongchao was stubborn and unyielding. He would fire his superior, not to mention Lu Lanting, who was only his student. Find another teacher? Lu Heng did not expect Feng Jin to say something like that. He was put in a difficult position. In this era, a teacher for a day, a father for life was not as simple as it seemed. Jiang Pengji, on the other hand, did not show much of an expression. Feng Jin smiled. Mr. Yuanjing is opening an academy in Langyi County. If you are interested, you can give it a try. Mr. Yuanjing? Lu Heng was surprised at first, but he could not suppress the joy on his face. Huayu, are you serious? Jiang Pengji listened quietly, and information about Mr. Yuanjing popped up in her mind. Speaking of which, this was also a setting that was very much like Tom Su's Prince Charming. He was the dream lover of all the girls in Dongqing and the other 4 countries. Mr. Yuanjing was a great scholar in Dongqing. He was born with auspicious signs, and his childhood experience was even more extraordinary. He met a deity at the age of 7 and was blessed by the deity, who cleansed his marrow and changed his bones. Before he reached his 20s, he was already well versed in astronomy and geography. He was proficient in the 5 elements, 8 trigrams, Qimeng, and Duanjia. He was also proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. He was even proficient in agriculture and water conservancy. He knew business and military strategy. He was a walking demon. This great scholar became famous 8 years ago when he argued with the envoys of the 3 tribes of the northern borderline. Not only did he demand the return of the 3 cities, he even made the envoy who came for the peace talks vomit 3 liters of blood. He died after a few days of recuperation. His words could really kill someone. Since then, he had become famous. While Jiang Pengji watched the drama unfold, Lu Heng's cousin was a little nervous. It's not that I don't believe in Lanting, but she's still young. She was held up by the family school for 4 years. Later, Mr. Wei Yuan taught her at home, but she still fell behind in her studies. I'm afraid she won't be able to do well in her studies. How can she become Mr. Yuanjing's disciple? There was only one Master Yuanjing, but students who wanted to learn from him could line up from Dongqing to Xichang. There were too many monks and too little porridge. Master Yuanjing's fangirls were too powerful. How could the petite Lanting overcome so many obstacles and finally become Master Yuanjing's disciple? Lu Heng was biased towards his cousin, but he knew how unrealistic it was for her to get a place. However, if she could really become Master Yuanjing's disciple, the benefits would be huge. It would be enough for his cousin to benefit for the rest of his life. Feng Jin looked at Jiang Pengji meaningfully. I don't have much confidence if it's someone else, but if Lanting goes, all she has to do is report her family name and Master Yuanjing will definitely give her face. Even if he doesn't take her in, she can study peacefully in the school. Are my parents old friends with Master Yuanjing? Lu Lanting did not remember such a thing. Feng Jin had heard this from his father by chance. We have some history with your mother. It was said that Master Yuanjing had been very poor in his early years. He was the son of a poor family and almost could not continue his studies because of his lifestyle. Later, in the middle of a snowy winter, he met Lu Shi's wife and received money from her. Master Yuanjing rejected other people's help but accepted Lu Lanting's mother's money. It was confusing. Of course, no matter how confused they would not think that Master Yuanjing was a pedophile. Master Yuanjing was already a young man then, while Lu Lanting's mother was only 6 or 7 years old. However, your mother is really knowledgeable. She only said that the money today was only in exchange for a promise in the future. If Master Tian Yuanjing becomes famous one day, she hopes that you can teach her children a thing or two in the future. This is really funny, a 6-year-old little girl saying this to a young man in his 20s. Just thinking about it made one feel dumbfounded. Chapter 42. The internet provides you with exciting novels to read. Feng Jin thought that the scene was very interesting, but when Jiang Pengji heard it, she heard something else. Lu Lanting's mother's background was more interesting than she had imagined. Jiang Pengji was not the only one who thought that way. Many viewers on the bullet screen made wild guesses as well. De Zhuangzhu Furan, streamer, do you think your mother is a transmigrator? She knows history and knows that Master Yuanjing will be famous in the future, so she invested in him in advance? How can adding icing on the cake be better than providing timely help? Wufa Wu Tian, that's a big guess, but if it were me, I would definitely date Master Yuanjing, Dei Dengmeng. Can you not be so dirty? According to the introduction, Master Yuanjing is in his 20s, and the streamer's mother is only 6 or 7, right? Cafeteria de Fan A, ha ha ha, don't you think the combination of a cute loli and an uncle is very cute? Jiang Pengji glanced at the comments and could not help but sympathize with Lu Lanting's father. Feng Jin turned to Jiang Pengji and asked, Lanting, what do you think? I'll discuss this with my father when he comes back. I can't make the decision for now, Jiang Pengji said. Feng Jin did not force her. It was just a suggestion. It was not up to him whether she wanted to go or not. Shou Shiguan, streamer, will you go? Jiang Pengji frowned and took a sip of tea. An indescribable taste spread in her mouth. She took a sip and put down the teacup. Host V, I'll go. Why not? The northern borderline and the southern barbarians are eyeing us. Dongqing won't be peaceful for long. I have to prepare as soon as possible. Even though the viewers did not know what Jiang Pengji meant, according to her usual style, it was not a small matter. On the official road in Hejian County, a simple carriage sped by. Master, we'll be in Hejian County after the official road. At this speed, we'll be home in 4 hours. Inside the carriage, the elegant man in simple attire couldn't help but lift the curtain and take a look outside. The cold wind blew through his hair. This person's eyes were like stars, and his eyebrows were like knives. His appearance was extraordinary, but his face was abnormally pale. His cheeks were slightly red, and there were dark circles under his eyes. The blue robe on his body made him seem extremely thin and weak, as if a gust of wind could blow him away. He was holding an urgent letter in his hand. His fingers were so pale that they turned purple. It was obvious how anxious the owner was. Yesterday, he received an urgent letter from home. When he opened it and read it, he was so shocked that he couldn't breathe and almost fainted. Later, when the situation had stabilized, he simply let the guards accompanying him carry most of the things on their journey slowly. He packed light and took the housekeeper along the official road, rushing all the way. He forcibly compressed the journey that should have taken 5 days into 1 day and 1 night. I don't know if Lanting is safe now. If something happens to her, how am I going to explain it to Ah Min? Cough cough cough. Lu Shi put down the curtain. His face was flushed and he coughed again. The housekeeper used to be Lu Shi's servant. Later, he followed Lu Shi to become a housekeeper, so he knew Lu Shi very well. He comforted him in a low voice, Second Lang Jun, the heavens help a good man. You can turn misfortune into fortune when you are in danger. Lu Shi lowered his head and looked at the letter that he had crumpled into a ball in his hand. The instant he saw the news, the fear made him feel as if he was on the verge of death. He did not dare to imagine that if Lien Lanting had really lost her life, would he have followed his daughter to the afterlife? Lu Shi hurried all the way back to his home that he hadn't set foot in for a few years. Fortunately, the gatekeeper was the same old man who recognized him. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to enter his own house. He would have been kicked out because he was poor. As soon as Lu Shi returned, he went to the second lady's room. The strong smell of medicine in the room made him frown. He stopped the second lady from getting up and bowing. You're not feeling well. You don't have to get up. Just lie down and talk. Brother-in-law, aren't you coming back in a few days? The second lady didn't comply. Instead, she slowly got up and leaned on the table to find a comfortable position. She still called Lu Shi the way she used to call him. Is it because of Lanting? Lu Shi said, I rushed back as soon as I received the letter. Those bandits are really bold. How is Lanting now? The second madam shook her head, and a faint smile appeared on her sickly pale face. She comforted Lu Shi and said, "Brother-in-law, you're usually so rational and careful. Why are you so confused when you're with Lanting? Did you see any signs of a funeral on your way back? My daughter, Lanting, is fine. Her teacher is sick and asked for leave, but she can't delay her studies. She went to the family school this morning. There's still an hour before school ends." Lu Shi thought about it and realized that it was true. The Lu residence was a little desolate, but there were no white banners. He was too worried and didn't notice it. Otherwise, with Lanting's status, if she passed away, wouldn't the entire Lu residence be in tears? I was too careless. Lu Shi's furrowed brows finally relaxed. He seemed to have let go of a huge burden and a smile finally appeared on his face. The second lady said worriedly, "But Lanting was really in danger this time. When she comes back from school, you have to teach her a lesson. A gentleman doesn't stand under a collapsing wall. Although she's smart and courageous, if she's not careful, she'll be doomed eternally. How can my sister feel at ease when she's in the afterlife?" Lu Shi hurriedly asked, and the second lady told him what Jiang Pengji had told her. The more he listened, the brighter his eyes became. "When Lanting comes back, I'll talk to her." Lu Shi's words carried an obvious smile. Even the corners of his lips, which had been pursed all year round, lifted a few degrees, making his entire face look lively. If one were to say that he was as rigid as a wax statue before, then he was now filled with life and became lively and bright. The second lady watched the changes in Lu Shi and clenched her fists under her sleeves to suppress the stinging pain in her chest. She looked at him from head to toe and smiled. "Brother-in-law, you've been traveling all the way and you're covered in dust. Are you going to see Lanting like this?" Lu Shi's most anxious thing had been put down, so he had the time to take care of himself. The second lady could not help but cover her lips with an embroidered handkerchief to tease him. "Since Lanting hasn't returned, go and freshen up. Don't embarrass yourself in front of her. Lanting has often heard of how her father was when he was young. When he went out, all the noble ladies would throw fruits at him. If he sees you like this when he comes back." Dreams were plentiful, but reality was harsh. Lu Shi had never been able to resist his sister-in-law's sharp tongue. He could not help but smile bitterly. "You're already this sick. Why don't you take good care of yourself? How can you still have the energy to make brother-in-law happy? Take good care of yourself. I'll go back to the main residence to freshen up. I don't want Lanting to be disappointed." The second lady watched Lu Shi's back until even the corner of his clothes could not be seen. Then, she slowly loosened her clenched fists. Chapter 43. We provide you with exciting novels to read. Help me lie down. The second lady coughed with a bitter smile and slowly lay back down with the help of the maid. The maid was a little angry. "You've been managing the house and raising second Lang Jun for many years. Why did the master only stay for a short while after he came back? He and my sister are very close. It's not suitable for him to stay in my room for a long time. He's already being very lenient by letting me stay where I am now." The second lady smiled helplessly. She was at her wits' end back then. If it wasn't for her brother-in-law, she wouldn't have survived until today. They were sisters, but their fates were different. Even if she told herself not to be jealous and that she should be grateful, she still felt heartbroken sometimes. Moreover, she had treated Lanting as her own daughter, but this was the end result. The maid was confused. She had just bought into the manor a few years ago, so she didn't know much about the grudges of the previous generation. The inner courtyard of the west side should have received news of the master's return by now, right? The second madam's illness was rather serious. Although she had reignited her hope of survival, her weakened body still needed time to recover. The maid thought about it and said, "They should already know." "Madam, do you think the master will go to Aunt Di's room tonight? It would be a slap in the face to sleep with the concubine on his first night back." Lu Shi didn't seem like someone who would do such an unreliable thing, but who knew if he would lose control of himself. Moreover, the second lady was seriously ill and couldn't even sleep with him. The second lady didn't think about the maid's worries. She just didn't like the maid's overstepping her authority. The second lady glared at the maid. I've let you do whatever you want. You even dare to comment on the master. Seeing the maid kneeling down in fear, the second madam couldn't swallow the anger in her heart, nor could she spit it out. She waved her hand and rubbed her eyebrows. She lay on her side and closed her eyes. Get up. Go kneel outside and think about what you said. The master isn't as merciful as me. If he finds out that you've done something wrong, he'll be sold out of the manor. She returned to the main courtyard to wash up and change into clean clothes. He drank some medicine to dispel the cold and reduce the fever. Only then did his feet feel like they were on solid ground. He had been sitting restlessly in the main hall for a long time. He hadn't read a single word of the bamboo slip in his hand. As the sky darkened, he looked at the door more and more frequently. Where was his usual calm and composed demeanor? Only when he was young and frivolous would he be so agitated. After a long time, so long that Lucy wondered if his daughter had been infected by her mother's bad habits and could not remember the way back. When he looked at the door for the 33rd time, someone finally reported, "Master, second Langjun is waiting outside. Quickly call Lanting in." Lucy's breath stagnated. He looked at the bamboo slip in his hand and felt a little uncomfortable. He put it aside and hid it. He was afraid that his daughter would misunderstand and think that he was going to test her when he just came back. That was what Jianghu saw as soon as she entered the room. A strange man was sitting upright at the head of the table. He was wearing a white robe with dark cloud patterns on his sleeves. A loose black cloak was draped over his shoulders. His fair and slender hands were exposed outside the sleeves, and they hung naturally on his knees. His eyes lit up when he saw her come in. His long hair was still damp, and his clothes were very clean, which meant that he had washed up not long after he came back. When he saw her, the muscles on his face were a little unnatural. His hand subconsciously moved, showing that he was nervous and uneasy. Jianghu approached and bowed to him. She looked at Lucy from head to toe. Although the clothes on her father were not shabby, there were obvious marks on the collar and cuffs. Some parts even had hair on them. The material seemed to have become fashionable a few years ago, and the size did not fit his current body shape. According to her understanding of the family's finances, it was obviously impossible for someone at the top of the pyramid to wear such clothes. The most likely reason was that the clothes had a special meaning to him. Even though it was so old, he still refused to throw it away. His fingernails were very clean and the color was healthy. It seemed that he was very particular about his lifestyle and hygiene. The ring on his left hand was obviously a wedding ring. Of course, there was no such thing as a wedding ring in this era, but if Lu Lanting's mother was really a woman from another world, then the wedding ring was definitely there. The marks on his finger were very deep, which meant that he did not take it off frequently. The surface of the ring was very smooth and clean, but the lines were a little shallow, which meant that the owner often took care of the ring and rubbed it from time to time. The smell on his body was very clean. There was no smell of a second person. His recent private life must have been very clean. His sitting posture was standard, but his muscles were a little stiff. His cheeks were a little unnatural, and his breathing rate was abnormal. Is he not feeling well? Is he sick? Jianghu narrowed her eyes. She had no intention of speaking first. She did not know what to say either. After a long silence, Lucy suddenly said, "Lanting, come sit next to me. I didn't expect you to be so big after not seeing me for so many years." He was deliberately trying to find a topic. His voice was too stiff. Jianghu secretly raised her eyebrows. This cheap father of hers was really nervous. She didn't pay attention to the live-streaming comments. She stood up, walked 3 steps away from Lucy, and sat down again. Lucy looked like he wanted to say something, but he did not know where to start. Jianghu could not continue to ignore him. Father has just returned from his post and is tired from the long journey. He is showing signs of fever. Have you asked the doctor to take a look? Lu Shi nodded. Because of the heat, his lips were very dry, and there were even some cracks on them. He stared straight at Jiang Pengji's face. His eyes couldn't get enough of her. His lips moved but he couldn't force out a word. In the end, he couldn't help but raise his hand to stroke her hair. He said slowly, I've asked the doctor to prescribe medicine. I drank it just now. I'm fine. At this time, the love-struck fans on the screen were collectively screaming. The overwhelming Zhuangzhu Furan. Oh. Host, do you still need a stepmother? Someone who went to college and can do laundry, cook, and play games? Cafeteria Daffin Auntie, this is a desperate world. Didn't they say that the ancient people were ugly? Why is it that the host's family is full of beautiful men and women? Even the host's father is so beautiful that I want to lick him from the top of his head to the bottom of his toes. My sick and weak father. Zizai Mei Nan, the host's handsome father made me come out. The touching just now made my heart beat wildly. Yisheng Wushui Miao Miao, */w***, host, does your father have mermaid lines and an 8-pack? Jiang Pengji glanced at it and her mouth suddenly froze. No matter what era it was, appearance was important. Host V, it's a pity. From what I see, he's so skinny under his clothes. Chapter 44. Lu Shi was indeed very thin. He wasn't short, and he didn't have much meat on his body. Even though Lu Shi was wearing loose clothes, Jiang Pengji was very good at judging a person's gender, height, weight, and measurements based on the size of his feet, the depth of his footprints, the frequency of his breathing, and the facial features. She could roughly determine a person's gender, height, weight, and measurements, let alone someone like Lu Shi. Jiang Pengji said discontentedly, Father is much thinner than before. When we return home this time, we have to take good care of the flesh. Lu Shi's eyes were filled with surprise. He was so excited that he couldn't even speak properly. His hands were trembling on his knees, as if he didn't know where to put them. Lanting, do you still have your childhood memories? Do you remember how I used to look like? After the death of Lu Lanting's twin brother, her birth mother also died of a serious illness. Lu Shi, who was deeply affected, had to leave Hejin County for some reason. His new post was far from here and it was very dangerous. Out of consideration, he did not bring Lu Lanting with him. He had only returned home twice in the past few years. To be precise, this father and son had not seen each other for many years. Jiang Pengji shook her head and said, the clothes you're wearing are old, but they're too big to fit you now. Aren't you losing weight? So that's how it is. The excitement on Lu Shi's face subsided, but when he thought about how his daughter had been so observant, it was obvious that she had taken a liking to him. He felt much better when he thought about it, and said gently, your mother doesn't like needlework. She's been married to me for many years, but she's only done a few sets. As expected, it seemed that this cheap father had deep feelings for the cheap mother that he had never met before. However, when she thought of the situation in the inner courtyard, she kicked this thought out of her mind. Men from the ancient times had different values from her own. Father, will you be staying at home for a long time this time? Jiang Pengji could tell that Lu Shi's physical condition was not very good. Aside from the depression in his heart, most of it was due to overwork. Based on the trend, it was not impossible for him to die from overwork. Therefore, she preferred to strike a balance between work and rest. Even though Jiang Pengji could not treat Lu Lanting as her father, she was still borrowing Lu Lanting's body. Jiang Pengji could at least show some concern for Lu Lanting, but it was up to Lu Lanting if he wanted to listen to her. In Lu Shi's ears, his heart softened as if he was a careful daughter who couldn't bear to see him leave. This time, I have some matters to deal with. I should be staying here for about 3 months. After I'm done with everything, I'll go to Shangjing. If everything goes smoothly, I'll have nothing to worry about and be a rich man at home. Lu Shi's answer was completely out of Jiang Pengji's expectations. Was he going to retire? Father, you're still so young. You've just reached the age of 30. Why are you retiring? In that era, there was no precise retirement age for officials. Most of them worked until they could no longer work. Lu Shi was still young, only in his early 30s. His career was on the rise, and there was still room for him to show off. Lu Shi thought for a moment, then touched his head. The official family doesn't care about the dissuasion of the scholars and Confucian scholars, and doesn't listen to the advice of the hundreds of officials. They insist on negotiating with the 3 tribes of the northern borderline. If this continues, I'm afraid there will be a great disaster. It's better to escape as soon as possible while it's still early. My wish in life is to live a carefree life and protect you as you grow up. However, the current situation is unforgiving. In comparison, the internal strife and intrigue in the officialdom is really boring. Lanting is almost an adult, and I want to spend more time with you. He smiled bitterly. How could his daughter understand such things? Father, are you worried that after the negotiation, the emperor will be afraid of the Count of Jinbei and will cut off his own arms? Jiang Pengji's words shocked Lu Shi. He did not expect his daughter to be so knowledgeable. On second thought, although his daughter was a girl, she had been raised as a man since she was young. She was also his and Ah Min's daughter, so she was not stupid. What's more, his daughter had an extraordinary background. Indeed, the 3 tribes of the northern borderline are ambitious and have coveted Dongqing for many years. The emperor has been neglecting the court affairs and is no longer as wise and decisive as he was when he was young. Refusing to negotiate, the emperor still has to rely on the Count of Jinbei. However, the emperor has long been dissatisfied with the Count of Jinbei and always wants to take over the military power. If the negotiation is successful, it will be time to kill the donkey after it's no longer useful. Lu Shi shook his head. It was not that there were no people who could see the hidden dangers, but the emperor was biased and stubborn. Even a few bulls could not pull him back. Speaking of this, Lu Shi sneered and said sarcastically, they are not upright. No wonder they are afraid of the Count of Jinbei. The royal family of Dongqing was originally a fugitive slave. Later, they worked as a groom for a famous general of the previous dynasty. By chance, they were favored and slowly rose to power. However, a dog cannot change its spots. Their ancestor became a rebel for a temporary benefit. His descendants thought that all the generals were rebels. The corner of Jiang Pengji's mouth twitched secretly. She thought that as an outsider, she had no fear of the imperial power. She had blurted out what she wanted. She did not expect her father to be even more ruthless. He had directly scolded the ancestors of the Dongqing royal family. In ancient times, bloodline and background were the most important. Scolding them was more insulting than anything else. However, it could also be seen from this point that her father was not foolishly loyal at all. He was quite rebellious in nature. Jiang Pengji asked, if the Count of Jinbei falls, will there be other soldiers in Dongqing who can resist the ambitious 3 tribes of the northern borderline? If there is, why would the emperor rely on the Count of Jinbei to guard the border of the northern borderline for so many years? They would have separated and restrained each other long ago. Lu Shi sneered. He did not let go of the Count of Jinbei, but at the same time, he was thinking about taking back the military power. He was not afraid of being divided. If that's the case, once the Count of Jinbei falls, the emperor will be bewitched and promote a few generals who only have the ability to talk on paper to replace the Count of Jinbei and guard everywhere. When the time comes, the southern barbarians and the northern borderline will join forces. I'm afraid they will have the momentum to destroy everything. Dongqing, war was Jiang Pengji's old profession. Although the situation and the tools of war in the 2 eras were different, which led to the final method of war, the essence of war remained the same. Even if the environment had changed, her sense of smell was still as sharp as ever. Dongqing had no other capable generals except for the Count of Jinbei. It showed how much the military officials were suppressed. If it's chaotic, then so be it. As the saying goes, heroes emerge in troubled times. If things are really as Lanting said, Dongqing's destiny is near. Unexpectedly, Lu Shi, who was usually elegant, sneered and said such rebellious words. Jiang Pengji said slowly, I think that a centipede is dead but not dead. Maybe it can be saved. It was a country in ancient times. Information, communication, and transportation were too backward. It was not as easy to destroy a country as it was in her era. In her era, if one wanted to destroy a country in the morning, it would never be delayed until the evening. Lu Shi put on a gentle and doting smile and added, a fool who doesn't know he's courting death is incurable. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Tudu Feiqiu, I can suddenly read the expression on the host's face. It's definitely a B** starred. Chapter 45. Putting aside her prejudices, Jiang Pengji realized that she seemed to have picked up a rather different kind of father. Your handwriting is much better than your mother's. It should be more like mine. As the head of a feudal family, no matter how different Lu Shi was, teaching, testing, and checking on his work were all part of the process of fostering the bond between father and son. He glanced at Jiang Pengji's handwriting and his facial muscles twitched. He reluctantly praised, it's pretty good. Jiang Pengji was speechless. It was clearly written, yet he was praising her for drawing well. To put it bluntly, he was indirectly criticizing her for not writing well. Jiang Pengji wanted to find an excuse to avoid it, but her eyes lit up when she saw Lu Shi grind the brush and write. Even if she couldn't tell what it was, she thought it looked good. Jiang Pengji's eyes lit up when she saw Lu Shi's writing. As a matter of fact, Lu Shi's handwriting was also famous in Hejin County. It was clear and smooth, full of meaning. The characters were strong, and the meaning of each word was in harmony with the spirit. Now that he had been an official for many years, his state of mind was not as rash as it was when he was young. His handwriting was more gentle and elegant. Looking at calligraphy is like looking at a person. A good handwriting is far more attractive than a beautiful essay. Lu Shi put down his brush and wrote the words, Lu Shi, on the bamboo paper. Comparing it with Jiang Pengji's own handwriting, it was obvious who was better. Jiang Pengji carefully observed the difference between the two. All kinds of information emerged in her mind. She was also analyzing Lu Shi's posture and strength. But before she could finish her analysis, Lu Shi, who seemed to be a very serious feudal patriarch, added. After all, when sending a letter to a lady, they usually look at the words first before reading the sentimental content. Jiang Pengji coughed. Lu Shi smiled and squinted his eyes. He was satisfied with his son's reaction. What's there to be surprised about? Back then, Ah Min always mocked me for my bad handwriting, saying that it was like a dog crawling on the ground. No matter how good the content was, the impression would be reduced. If we didn't know each other, she wouldn't even want to see it. De Zhuangzhu Furen, the host's mother, taught her well. She is a feudal patriarch who is at the forefront of the times. 233333 Zizai Mainan. Although the style doesn't feel right, and a feudal parent should be serious in speech and manner and ask for domestic discipline at the drop of a hat, but... this kind of streamer papa is really cute. Privately discussing with his adolescent son about the essentials of writing love letters, */w***, Lan Shui Yubuja, but the host is a girl. I'm confused. Tudu Feiqiu, I'll say it again, when it comes to picking up girls, I only admire the streamer. Jiang Pengji relaxed a little when she saw him like that. So, this is the motivation for father to learn calligraphy? Lu Shi said righteously, the result is that I can write well, but no one knows why. They can only see the result. Then, Lu Shi asked Jiang Pengji what books she had been reading recently and what her thoughts were. He wanted to know about his sons, or daughters, hobbies. I copied the Analects of Confucius yesterday, but I didn't like it. Instead, I thought the military strategies in the study was more interesting. Lu Shi agreed. I don't like it either. It's easy to wear it out. You're still young, so you should just read a little to pass the time. You don't have to read too deeply. When you're older, you'll have your own ideas and experience. Then you can study it again. Jiang Pengji could not help but secretly sigh that her legendary mother had taught her well. The Analects of Confucius was a classic of Confucianism and the leader of literature in that era. After the unification of the previous dynasty, Confucianism became the orthodox school of thought. After hundreds of years of chaos, other schools gradually rose. It was not until the 5 countries were divided into xia that 100 schools of thought contended. Even then, Confucianism was still respected as the orthodox school of thought, and no one could challenge its position. Lu Shi was a high-ranking official in Dongqing, and he was considered the orthodox school of Confucianism. He was going all out to talk to his son like that in private. If Jiang Pengji was an indigenous person and met such a father, it would indeed leave a very deep first impression. Lu Lanting's studies were not outstanding. Jiang Pengji relied on her memory, and the results were obvious. She could answer Feng Jin's questions during the day, but when it came to Lu Shi, her knowledge was not enough. Lanky Yubus, ha ha ha, this is tragic. I can already see the streamer getting scolded by the feudal elders. A group of viewers squatted down to watch the stream. They wanted to see Jiang Pengji get scolded by Lu Shi, but they were all disappointed. Jiang Pengji felt guilty and depressed. I've let you down, father. Lu Shi was not disappointed. Compared to the number of books she had read and the number of articles she had memorized, he was more interested in her aura. Who could not read from a book? It was rare for her to have her own ideas instead of following the crowd and being a yes man. Not bad. At least you're not stupid. He rubbed the top of her head lovingly. You can make up for your studies slowly. There's no rush. In fact, Lu Shi used to be a naughty child who could not read well. He could read all the words, but he could not put them into his head. Every time his teacher or his father tested him, his mind would be in a mess. He would have many ideas, but he could not express them. He had suffered enough, and he did not want his son to repeat the same mistake. What's the point of writing a good policy or political commentary? As a parent, the most important thing is to govern. No matter how much you learn, it's all for this purpose. If you focus on studying and writing, you'll neglect other things. Isn't that putting the cart before the horse? Jiang Pengji had to admit that Lu Shi's words were like a non-mainstream feudal patriarch. Just by looking at the bullet screen of the live broadcast, one would know that Lu Shi's speech had immediately captured many fans. After a while, Lu Shi saw that the sky had completely darkened. He could not help but feel a little regretful. It's getting late. Lanting, go back and rest. Come with me to the Shangfu temple tomorrow morning. The Shangfu temple? Jiang Pengji was puzzled. Don't we have to go to the family school? Of course not. The family school is not bad, but it's a bad atmosphere. It's easy to learn bad things. It's better for me to teach you personally. Lu Shi said, after your second brother passed away, Min dragged her sick body to the Shangfu temple to pray for you to pass the evil tribulation at the age of 12. Now that the tribulation has passed, it's only natural for me to fulfill your mother's wish and let Master Liaochen take a look at you. Jiang Pengji's heart skipped a beat. The evil tribulation at the age of 12. Are you referring to the bandits? Yes, I think so. Lu Shi's eyes were a little gloomy when he said that. Father, you already know? Jiang Pengji thought it would be fine if the second lady saw through it. After all, she was an acquaintance. But Lu Shi had not been home for many years. He had only met his daughter once or twice when she was a child. How could she know? Was it because of the so-called blood relationship? Lu Shi patted her head again. Don't worry. I've known about it before you were born and I've prepared for it. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Why does it feel like we're not on the same wavelength? Chapter 46. Shangfu Temple was located on a high mountain in Hejin County. From the foot of the mountain to the temple, there were a total of 999 steps made of green bricks. They curved all the way to the top of the mountain. Along the way, there were pilgrims in twos and threes. They carried bamboo baskets with incense, candles, and other items in them. Jiang Pengji didn't believe in Buddha, but she had to admit that the scenery from the foot of the mountain to the top of the mountain was full of Zen. The stream was murmuring, and ancient trees were towering. She could vaguely hear the melodious sound of bells and the peaceful chanting of Buddhist scriptures in the distance. The sky turned from dark to bright. The mountains in the distance were shrouded in the red glow of the morning sun. Accompanied by the calming sound of Buddha, they welcomed the arrival of a new day. Even Jiang Pengji, who disdained Buddha, felt a lot more open-minded at that moment. The sound of wooden clogs landing on the stone floor rang out, one step after another, each step carrying a leisurely charm. She wore a brand new dark green robe. The size was much better than the clothes he wore the day before. It also showed how thin he was. His black hair was meticulously arranged, and his face was trimmed clean. He looked refreshed, and his fingernails and toenails were meticulously trimmed. There was even a hint of sandalwood fragrance on his body. His face was solemn, which showed how much he valued this vow. Jiang Pengji held a food box in her hand. It contained incense, candles, lamp oil, gold paper, and fruits for the ceremony. Of course, she secretly weighed the box. The weight did not match the real thing. There might be real money in it. Love go little say net ku. When your two elder brothers passed away due to illness, Min had worshipped her way up to the Buddhist temple step by step, begging Buddha for mercy. Although he maintained a leisurely pace and breathing rate, Shi's body was not strong. He had only climbed a third of the way, and his forehead was already sweating. He had taken medicine the day before. Although his fever had subsided in the middle of the night, his body was still weak. Even his lips were pale. Didn't father say that mother's health is not good? Why did she do it? What's the use of praying to Buddha instead of seeking medical help when she's sick? Jiang Pengji didn't understand. According to her guess, her mother didn't seem like a person who believed in gods or Buddha. That's right. Getting sick is the job of the doctors. What's the use of praying to the gods and Buddha? If all the gods and Buddhas were useful, how could your two brothers have died? Min also scoffs at gods and Buddhas, but, sometimes when there is no other way out, not to mention gods and Buddhas, even a swindler can be a straw to save the people. Hope is firmly grasped in our hands. Shi sighed as he walked, as if he was recalling something. In the end, he couldn't save the child's life. The continuous blows had taken half his wife's life. Didn't that mean he was also taking his life? Since he couldn't persuade her, what else could he do besides accompanying her and fooling around? He hated himself for not being a doctor, for not being able to cure the illness and save the life. Fortunately, you are still alive. Today, I have come to fulfill my wish. I hope that your mother and brother can see you and protect your future happiness. Jiang Pengji held the food box in silence. She was not Lu Lanting. Father, you know very well that I'm not. Oh, you are the daughter that Min wants. Don't let your imagination run wild. She seemed to have a habit of patting her head. Since he had taken 2 more steps, it was not difficult for him to do so. She will only be completely at ease in the other world if you live a good life. Jiang Pengji didn't understand. She looked at Shi's slightly thin back, feeling that there was another layer of meaning in his words. She took Jiang Pengji and the old housekeeper to Shangfu Temple before the sun rose. The long climb up the mountain made their legs ache. Finally, they reached the top of the mountain when the sun was high up in the sky. They saw the temple hidden in the lush forest. The temple was surrounded by lush green books. Layers of fresh flowers and plants clustered around the fading walls of the courtyard. The greenish-gray roof of the temple showed a youthful charm under the sunlight. The ancient trees were bathed in the morning light. They could hear the deep ringing of bells and the chirping of birds. The area of Shangfu Temple was not large, but the age of its construction made it look like an old man standing on the top of the mountain, watching the changes of the world day after day. Shangfu Temple was built before the 16 Kingdoms War. At that time, Buddhist temples flourished and there were countless temples. Lu Shi gave a brief introduction of Shangfu Temple and led Jiang Pengji into the main hall. He bowed to a middle-aged monk and asked, "Is Master Liaochen here?" "The master is waiting for you in the meditation room in the side hall. Please follow me." The monk in the gray robe bowed back as if he had expected it. He looked humble and pious. Jiang Pengji observed the surroundings out of boredom. There were already many worshippers in the main hall. There were men and women, young and old. They added some liveliness to the old temple. As she was thinking, she heard Lu Shi calling her name. After passing through a corridor, Jiang Pengji followed Lu Shi to a meditation room. Before she stepped in, she heard a conversation between Lu Shi and an old monk. "It's been 7 years. How have you been, Master Lu?" Lu Shi responded calmly, "Everything is fine. Master Lu, you still have resentment in your heart. It's hard for you to be well." Jiang Pengji laughed in her heart. The old monk's words made her feel like he deserved a beating. Lu Shi's voice was filled with resentment. "Since Master Liaochen already knows, why ask? This must be the beloved daughter of Benefactor Lu and Benefactor Gu, right?" When the old monk saw Jiang Pengji enter, he raised his head and glanced at her. Then, he quickly lowered his head again. The speed at which he twirled the prayer beads in his hand increased. Good, good. Why have you come to the peaceful place of Buddhism?" Jiang Pengji was baffled. She felt a slight chill in her heart. It was as if someone had seen through her. She was very unhappy. Because the stream started earlier, it took a while for the audience to come in. Someone could not help but post a bullet screen when they saw the scene. "Feiqiu Chiyuhuyo, host, let me tell you something. Whenever you travel through time, there must be a strange monk." Jiang Pengji secretly raised her eyebrows. Even though she did not know what the law of time travel was, the monk in front of her was indeed strange. "Of course, I followed my father here to fulfill my vow. Otherwise, why would I spend so much effort to climb the mountain and not sleep in my bed? Why would I come here?" Jiang Pengji was baffled, but she still followed the advice and sat down on the cushion beside Lu Shi. Her words were considered disrespectful, but the old monk in front of her did not show any anger. Instead, he smiled kindly. "Ziwei destroys the army. The emperor's aura is faintly discernible. Too much is as bad as not enough." The old monk said calmly, "When you stepped into this humble temple, your blood pressure caused the Buddha's aura to fluctuate. If it were not for the stone steps in the temple, I'm afraid." Chapter 47. What the hell? Jiang Pengji's face was full of questions. Were people from ancient times so unreasonable? They said specious things the moment they met? Of course, the originally quiet live broadcast room had exploded. Many of the viewers who were watching the live broadcast expressed that the message contained a lot of information. "Jing Ming, my male god, no." Was the old monk hinting that the streamer has the luck of an emperor? "Shui by Xian Feiyang, the way I opened the streaming room today is not right. Isn't this a streaming room for palace intrigue? Yuda Yida, oh my, the ending of palace intrigue is the death of the emperor and becoming the emperor himself? The emperor's version of empresses in the palace? Nongfu Shanquan Yudiangshuan, bullshit. If the streamer goes to palace intrigue, is that still palace intrigue? It's a palace intrigue version of gluttonous snakes." Jiang Pengji's eyes twitched. What the hell was the emperor's version of empresses in the palace? She knew about gluttonous snakes, but what did palace intrigue mean? At that moment, a little angel who was watching the streaming live demonstrated what palace intrigue version of gluttonous snakes was. Kulele Yile, congratulations to the streamer for eating Beauty XX, level up +1. Congratulations to the streamer for eating Beauty XX, level up +2. congratulations to the streamer for eating concubines XX, level up +3, congratulations to the streamer for eating concubines XX, royal concubines XX, empresses XX, level up plus, Jiang Pengji. She did not know that Jiang Pengji was distracted. His handsome face was full of anger. Master Liaochen, did you say? The old monk Liaochen made a Buddhist greeting and chanted, that was then and this is now. The young lady is not an ordinary person. Saying it will be beneficial for her to prevent her from going astray in the future. Love go small say Netka Master Lu cares about your beloved daughter and can't bear for her life to be full of misfortune. Just let nature take its course. Jiang Pengji stopped making question marks. She did not care about etiquette and interrupted the guessing game between the two. I wonder if Father and Master Liaochen can answer my question. What is the Emperor's aura? What does it mean? She nodded expressionlessly. The monk Liaochen smiled kindly and exposed Jiang Pengji's facade. Young benefactor has a lofty character, an explosive temperament, and a lofty aspiration. How could you be willing to submit to others? Under Lu Shi's stare, the old monk leisurely twirled his Buddhist beads and said unhurriedly, young almsgiver, do you agree? Jiang Pengji was speechless. How was he an otherworldly monk? Which of the other monks didn't persuade people to lay down their butcher's knife and become a Buddha? He seemed to be encouraging her to raise her butcher knife boldly. If Lu Shi was the leader of a feudalistic family, then this monk was the non-mainstream of Buddhism. People from ancient times were really hard to communicate with. Jiang Pengji was about to answer, but the old monk suddenly said to Lu Shi, I have something to say to you. I'm afraid it's not suitable for you to hear. The reincarnation tablets of your wife and 2 young masters are enshrined in the side hall. Lu Shi hesitated for a while, but in the end, he got up with a cold face. Before he left, he patted Jiang Pengji's head as if to comfort her. After making sure that Lu Shi was far away and that there was no one else around, Jiang Pengji finally frowned impatiently. The smile on the old monk's face became much gentler. About 29 years ago, I met your mother. She was only this young. Jiang Pengji was even more curious about her mother. She could not help but ask, you met her? Yes. She wanted to erect a reincarnation tablet for a little girl. The girl's name was Gu Min. Jiang Pengji almost crushed the cup of tea that the old monk had brewed for her because Lu Lanting's mother's name was Gu Min. Master, are you seeing things? Did you remember the wrong name? Who would erect a reincarnation tablet for themselves at such a young age? Jiang Pengji said calmly while secretly observing the old monk's expression. She did not want to miss out on any trace of abnormality. That benefactor was not an ordinary person. Her soul showed signs of leaving her body, and her body was filled with yin energy. The old monk seemed to be talking about daily life, as if he was reminiscing about the past. Moreover, that girl died in early June. She looked like she was dead, but she was still alive at that time. Jiang Pengji felt that the meditation room was indescribably gloomy. The old monk had seen through her. The old monk rambled on. She heard about my humble reputation, so she knelt down and kowtowed to me, hoping to find a chance of survival. I should not have saved her. After all, seizing a body is a sinister act. However, she was destined to be blessed, and she sincerely begged me. Jiang Pengji narrowed her eyes and said with certainty, they say that monks do not lie. Why did you lie to me? The old monk's expression froze. He looked at Jiang Pengji for a long time and suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. Young benefactor, you are making things difficult for me. TSK, I just don't believe that there is such a good thing. How can a person's life be extended so easily? If that was the case, those emperors who were afraid of death would have ascended a long time ago. I believe that you took advantage of the situation to do her a favor. Jiang Pengji grinned, revealing a row of white teeth. Maybe that girl didn't deserve to die. She just died for some reason. It was fate that my mother ended up in her body. Why don't you just push the boat with the current and do her a favor by expelling the yin energy from her body? She thought that the old monk would fly into a rage, but he shamelessly nodded and admitted to it. Young benefactor, you are indeed smart. Everything has its cause and effect. Fate has its own destiny. The girl should have died, and your mother should have appeared. Just like you, young benefactor, she should have become Lu Lanting. After the old monk finished speaking, he twirled his Buddhist beads and kept on muttering. At that moment, the system, which had been silent for a long time, secretly said, I feel like this old monk is spouting a bunch of nonsense. Jiang Pengji said meaningfully, maybe it's not nonsense. He just wants to pass on some important information to me. System, what information? I don't know. The brains of people in ancient times are too complicated. They are not on the same channel. I don't understand, Jiang Pengji complained. The system said. Then what are you trying to say? Jiang Pengji rubbed the space between her eyebrows and asked a straightforward question. I don't want to know about the past. I just want to know how you and my cheap mother worked together to deceive my cheap father and my cheap stepmother. They knew that their bodies were the same, but their souls were different. Based on their current thinking, wouldn't they treat me like a demon, cut me into pieces, and burn me? Did they think she was stupid? Did the second lady and her father think that she did not know about this secret? Jiang Pengji said bluntly, I inherited a dead body. When I woke up, Lu Lanting was already gone. Both the second lady and her father knew that Jiang Pengji was not Lu Lanting, but they still treated her as their daughter. This development infuriated her. At first, she thought that the two were lying to themselves, but when she saw the old monk, she suddenly understood. This was the root of the problem. This is not a lie. Young benefactor, you are indeed Lu Lanting. You should be Lu Lanting. A monk does not lie. Jiang Pengji bluntly exposed him. You lied to me just now. Master Liaochen was speechless. Chapter 48. Well, there's no point in dwelling on it. Jiang Pengji rested her chin on one hand and looked at the old monk, waiting for him to speak. Young lady, this is your mother's wish. The old monk twirled his beads. When your mother lost 2 sons, she asked me to read the physiognomy of all the children in the house. None of them had the fate of an emperor, but your mother was certain that Lu Shi's daughter was destined to be an emperor. Jiang Pengji narrowed her eyes. So certain. Was her mother really a woman who knew history? I'm not strong enough, so I asked a friend for help. Finally, I figured out that Lu Shi had the fate of being the father of an emperor, but the daughter of an emperor never showed up. Before your mother passed away, she seemed to have figured something out. To protect you, she asked me for a favor. The old monk said with a smile, your mother didn't care about the danger of being burned as a demon and told your father about her origin. She also said that she had 2 souls in her body since she was young, and one of them died because of the death tribulation. As her daughter, it is very likely that the young benefactor will. Jiang Pengji's hands trembled, and she almost spilled the tea in her cup. 2 souls in one body. Did that mean that both the second lady and Lu Shi thought that the real Lu Lanting was the one who died? If that wasn't the case, little benefactor and your esteemed father would definitely harbor animosity toward each other. It's not impossible that they would eventually fall out. The old monk maintained his amiable smile. Moreover, your mother knew you were her daughter. There's no doubt about that. But why was she so sure that the death would happen at the age of 12? Jiang Pengji was shocked. She had an answer, but she needed to verify it. Your mother had just given birth to you and your brother. Seeing that they were both intelligent, she secretly asked me if the body of the baby girl had been possessed by a thief. She said that the baby girl was supposed to be soulless until she was 12 years old. Jiang Pengji crossed her arms in front of her chest. Various clues kept flashing through her mind. According to the current information, that cheap mother was really a woman who knew about history. Or, in other words, in history, this empress was quite famous. Moreover, in the history books, there were comments such as, she was as stupid as a tree when she was young and didn't understand human nature. Perhaps there were records of the empress and her biological father not getting along, or even falling out with each other. However, the problem of space-time had always been complicated. That cheap mother had memories of the future, and every move she made affected the so-called history. According to the old monk, although the mother knew about history, she was bound by it and did not live as she wished. How can something like fate be determined? If I really want to fight for supremacy in the future, it will be because I want to do so, not because fate dictates that I must do so. The so-called future is just one of thousands of possibilities, not the only one. It had always been the process that determined the results. When had the results determined the process? Jiang Pengji shook her head and said, "It's boring, but I have to thank you for doing me a big favor." The reason of having two souls in one body was very nonsensical, but to the ancient people, it was a reason that was easier to accept, and it also saved them a lot of trouble. This old monk cannot accept young benefactor's thanks. The old monk shook his head and said greedily, "Young benefactor, you are still the most sensible. The way of fate is mysterious and not unchangeable. However, perhaps because you know these things, you will fall short of success in the future, and you will lose the throne because of a wrong decision." Jiang Pengji snorted and said arrogantly, "If I want it in the future, then it can only belong to me. I will kill whoever tries to snatch it." Because of Jiang Pengji's declaration full of chinibyu, the live stream screen kept receiving gifts and flowers. Nongfu Shanquan Yudiangshuan, ha ha ha, I like the way the host gives up treatment in the late stage of chinibyu. Nyoda Ida, yes, she gives up treatment in the late stage of chinibyu, but somehow it feels so good, */w***, Kulele Yile, give me my 40-meter broadsword. I am more looking forward to the greedy snake version of harem fighting. She can still become the emperor after getting rid of the emperor. She can sleep with men, and she can sleep with their wives. Since ancient times, it was good to have a wife. Even though the bullet screen was dirty, there were still old drivers who wanted to squeeze in with their cars. Oh Huang Sai Gao, what's so good about sleeping with the emperor? It's better to have a dog than harem fighting. It's disgusting to use a cucumber for public use. Sleeping Sanguishan, it's not challenging to be the empress in harem fighting. Which concubine can withstand a slap from the host? It's better to take the route of conquering the world and sleep with all the civil and military officials. Then there will be rumors of love affairs in the future. */w***, Yen Lingshi, ha ha ha, sleep with all the civil and military officials plus 1 Shang De Ji, sleep with all the civil and military officials plus 2. Jiang Pengji's expression changed slightly when she saw the duplicates of the civil and military officials. Then she teased the audience in a good mood. Host V, even if I have to sleep with someone, I should sleep with all the wives of the civil and military officials. The host likes girls the most. Sleeping Sanguishan, this kind of master will be doomed sooner or later. Yen Lingshi, this kind of master will be doomed sooner or later. Jiang Pengji almost burst into laughter. It was just a joke. She liked girls, but her sexual orientation was normal. Jiang Pengji left the meditation room in a good mood and went to the hall of the side hall. She found Lu Shi kneeling on the cattail hassock, praying devoutly. She looked at the reincarnation tablet. Other than Gu Min and the 2 sons who died young, there was a newer but empty tablet next to it. Jiang Pengji's heart skipped a beat. She already knew who the tablet was for and why it couldn't be written with a name. Was it to avoid offending the living? Although she didn't believe in gods or Buddha, it was one thing to believe in them and another to express one's attitude. She also lit some incense and went forward to offer a few sticks. Jiang Pengji tried to ask, should I change my name? The reincarnation tablet was empty, and Lu Shi felt sad when he saw it. It's okay. Make a new one. Lu Shi sighed and inserted the incense in his hand into the altar. He looked at it with a complicated and nostalgic look. I thought I could have a bunch of children with Gu Min, so I prepared more than a dozen names a few years ago. There were boys and girls. Unfortunately, there were only 2 names that could be used in the end. The twin siblings actually used the same name. Actually, I've always been confused. Why did my father let me take the identity of my brother? She could understand if it was a cliché TV series where the official mother was raised as a man to protect her position. But looking at the situation in the Lus, it was not necessary at all. It seemed that all the masters of the Lus knew that she was a woman. Lu, she said in a strange tone, how can a daughter live as freely as a son? Your mother had to learn the rules and etiquette when she was young. When did she not suffer? She was right. You can live freely and happily for your brother. That's more important than anything else. If Lu Shi was not the second son who survived, how could he have lived to this age? Lu Shi sighed in his heart. A hint of gloominess flashed through his heart. As for the children, when she grew up, she would have a way to hide it from everyone. She didn't need to worry about the future of the family. Even if she lived a carefree life, the family property that she and Gu Min had saved in the first half of their lives was enough for her to spend. He was indeed a husband who had been taught by his mother for decades. His thinking was avant-garde and he was very receptive. Chapter 49. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. But what about Wei Jingxian's engagement? Lu Shi could tell what she wanted to ask. He raised his eyebrows with a hint of displeasure. The marriage was first proposed by the Wei's wife. She agreed to it because of the good relationship between the two families. Then your brother died. Min wanted to break off the engagement and get back the token, but the Wei's wife didn't agree. She only said that the child would grow up. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Why didn't she agree? Isn't it bad for your reputation if the engagement is broken off when you grow up? Lu Shi said, isn't it bad to have a bad reputation when you're young? Jiang Pengji was speechless. She really couldn't understand the ancient people's thinking. It was completely different. I don't think so. After all, she was only 3 or 4 years old. How could she have a bad reputation at such a young age? Jiang Pengji was deeply moved by the anti-humanity of this era. The reputation of having a bad reputation was really bad for girls in ancient times. Your brother died on the second day after the two families exchanged the token. Speaking of this matter, Lu Shi actually felt resentful. He even unconsciously blamed Wei Jingxian for the death of his youngest son. However, he was rational and knew that this matter had nothing to do with the girl. He could only blame his youngest son for having such an unlucky life. They were not fated to be father and son. Jiang Pengji didn't say anything. Wei Jingxian was innocent, but the timing of the incident was too inopportune. After donating some money, the father and son finally came to an end. On their way down the mountain, Lu Shi took 2 pairs of new straw sandals from the housekeeper. He put one pair at Jiang Pengji's feet and said, going down the mountain is different from going up the mountain. It's easy to fall if you wear wooden clogs. Jiang Pengji smiled and put on the sandals. They didn't hurt her feet. Instead, they were soft. Father, have you ever been taken advantage of before? It didn't seem like it was his first time. Ignoring Jiang Pengji's teasing, Lu Shi said, your mother was stupid and almost disfigured. When they went down the mountain, the sun was already in the west. Looking at the long shadows on the ground, Lu Shi suddenly sighed. Your father is really getting old. If I was still young, I might be able to carry you down the mountain. He knew his own body well. When Lu Shi was young, Gu Min had urged him to do all kinds of exercises. He always felt that those movements were rude, shameful, and stupid. But thanks to that, he had gotten rid of his days of major illnesses and minor disasters after exercising. His body and bones had become much healthier. But now, he could barely climb the mountain. He really couldn't carry his daughter, who was about to become an adult. Otherwise, both father and daughter would fall down. Jiang Pengji said, I don't mind carrying my father down there. Lu Shi smiled but didn't say anything. He touched her head again. She was raised as a son, but she was still a daughter. How could she be stronger than a man? At that moment, Lu Shi subconsciously forgot that the second lady had told him that Jiang Pengji had single-handedly destroyed the entire bandit village. The journey down the mountain was very relaxing. Jiang Pengji chatted with Lu Shi and laughed. The atmosphere was very harmonious. However, when they talked about schoolwork, she suddenly remembered Master Yuanjing, whom Feng Jin had introduced to her. Jiang Pengji asked while secretly observing Lu Shi's expression. "Father, I heard from a friend that Mother and Master Yuanjing are old friends." "From your friend? Only a few people know about this. I don't think your friend is one of those old guys." Lu Shi's expression was calm. "Your mother supported Master Yuanjing when she was young. When Min was alive, our families would occasionally interact." "Indeed. That friend's surname is Feng, and his name is Jin. He said that my studies are not good, and Master Wei Yuan's personality is not suitable for me. If there is a chance, I can visit Master Yuanjing in Langyi County and see if I can become his disciple. Maybe I can be saved." Before Jiang Pengji finished her sentence, Lu Shi, who had been listening attentively, suddenly stopped walking. His expression was slightly stiff. He turned his head and looked at her. "Who? What?" Jiang Pengji didn't understand. She immediately understood that Lu Shi was referring to that friend. Feng Jin. Feng Jin? The one whose surname is Huayu? Lu Shi's face darkened. Nobody knew what he was thinking. "It is indeed Huayu. Father, is there something wrong with him?" Jiang Pengji's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Feng Jin's family was Lu Shi's political enemy? Lu Shi didn't look like a narrow-minded person. Why would he implicate his political enemy's descendant just because of his political enemy? He's just a kid. Lanting, you can just maintain a gentleman's relationship with him. There is no need to get close to him. Lu Shi regained his calm expression, as if he wasn't the one who frowned in displeasure. Although Jiang Pengji didn't understand, Lu Shi was not the kind of person who liked to slander people behind their backs. Moreover, Feng Jin was only a teenager. He was too different from Lu Shi. He must have his reasons for saying that. After a few more steps, Lu Shi suddenly asked, "How did Lanting and Feng Huayu meet?" Jiang Pengji gave a concise and comprehensive description. On the 3rd of March, he and his companions were chased by bandits. They accidentally broke into the bandits' village and happened to bump into me and Jing. We had some misunderstandings, but they were all solved later. Lu Shi asked calmly, "What do you think of his temperament?" If Lu Shi asked about Feng Jin's talent, Jiang Pengji could praise him, but temperament? It would be more derogatory. He acts decisively and treats people well. But sometimes he will do anything to achieve his goals. A man must be ruthless. If a man isn't decisive and ruthless, he won't even know how he died. Jiang Pengji was speechless. That should be a compliment to Feng Jin, right? If you want to go to Langyi County to look for Master Yuanjing, you can give it a try. In the previous dynasty, based on your age, it's time for you to leave home to study. It's a good thing to have the ambition to study abroad. But you don't have to reveal your identity. That person has a strange temper and doesn't take favors. According to my son's talent, he's no worse than his last disciple. Lu Shi changed the topic and didn't want to continue talking about Feng Jin. It was said that a woman's mind was hard to understand, but in her opinion, a man's mind was also like looking for a needle in a haystack. The carriage of the Lus was parked at the foot of the mountain. It was easier to go down than up. Soon, they could see the familiar carriage. Lu Shi was deep in thought when he got in the carriage. "Lanting, has Master Liaochen told you everything?" Jiang Pengji answered, "Yes, I've told him everything." Lu Shi asked, "Then, what do you think about that matter?" "It's still too early. If one day I really walk that path, I will naturally be the final winner. Rather than groveling at the feet of a brainless person, why not sit on the throne yourself?" Jiang Pengji was not someone who liked to stir up trouble, but she was definitely not someone who was afraid of trouble. Lu Shi closed his eyes. Well, don't say these words to anyone else when you leave this carriage. Keep it to yourself. Chapter 50. That being said, who could say for sure what would happen in the future? Jiang Pengji loved to fight, but she was not a bloodthirsty person. As long as people did not come to her door and provoke her, she would not look for trouble. As for what the old monk had said about raising a flag and becoming a king, or even having an army and becoming an empress, it all depended on the situation. She did not like to stir up trouble, but she was not afraid of it either. Jiang Pengji was quite calm as she watched the orange sunset outside the carriage, but she could not calm down. Back at the Lu residence, he asked Jiang Pengji to visit the second lady while he went straight to the main courtyard. He waved at the maids beside him and said, "Guard outside. No one is allowed to enter without my permission. If Lanting comes, remember to inform me." The two maids whispered, "Yes, sir." She did not even look at them. Instead, he walked briskly to the room where he and Gu Min used to live. According to the rules of the time, the legal wife usually lived in the east courtyard, but he and Gu Min had always shared the same room. The furnishings in the room were the same as before his wife passed away. She looked around and quickly walked to a corner of the room. He carefully opened the box and scratched the floor with the jade hairpin on his head a few times. Then, he followed the traces and moved the brick away. The bottom was hollow, and there were a few copper boxes inlaid with gold and silver. Each box was locked, and the only key was kept by him. Opening one of the copper boxes, he cautiously and carefully took out a neatly folded silk cloth that was filled with words. "Love go little say net." Kalushi's expression was inexplicably gloomy after he read the contents of the silk cloth. He was stunned for a long time. He waited for Jiang Pengji to come and pay her respects before he reluctantly folded the silk cloth back to its original shape. He put it away and moved the box back. She carefully smoothed out the creases in his clothes and adjusted his expression. After he was ready, he walked out of the room and went to the reception hall in the main courtyard. She had previously told Jiang Pengji that she did not need to go to the family school anymore. Wei Gongqiao was sick, so he was temporarily the teacher. He took the bamboo slips and the book from Jiang Pengji and flipped through them. "Are these what you've been reading recently?" A volume of military strategies and half a volume of the Analects of Confucius. He had originally used the study, so she was very familiar with the books in the study. Many of the bamboo slips had his annotations. As soon as he opened the bamboo slip, he saw many new comments. His daughter's favorable impression of military strategies was much higher than that of the Analects of Confucius. Most of the comments on the former were pertinent, and there were even his own thoughts and hypothetical strategies. As for the latter, TSK. Actually, he and Jiang Pengji were the same. They had never liked the Analects of Confucius. They would even get headaches if they read too much of it. Sages once said that the people are the most important, the country is second, and the monarch is the most important. TSK, but when you're really in an officialdom with constant strife, you'll find that these words can only deceive those who don't understand. Sages' words are just words after all. She closed the bamboo slip and put the half volume of the Analects of Confucius aside. He carefully read Jiang Pengji's comments on military strategies. Based on that sentence alone, Jiang Pengji was certain that she was a weirdo in this era. He was a weirdo who could perfectly blend in with the rest of the ordinary flowers. Now that the Confucian school was popular, it was still the leader of the 100 schools of thought. Was it really appropriate for him to say that? Even in her previous life, where technology was so advanced and the land was so vast, inequality still existed. It was a common occurrence, not to mention in the ancient times, where civilization was abnormally backward. But she didn't expect that she would say something like that to her. According to the thinking of the people in the ancient times, didn't they think that it was a normal phenomenon? Jiang Pengji couldn't reveal too much. She could only play along with his words and ask, "The monarch is the boat, and the commoner is the water. The water carries the boat, and the water capsizes the boat." From this, it can be seen that the commoner is more important than the monarch. Is it possible that the sage's words are also false? Lu Shi shook his head and corrected her. No, I can't say that it's false. I can only say that it's too perfect. He knew that his daughter was extraordinary, but she was still a child who had not seen much of the world. Amin often said that at the age of 12, she was still a little girl who was still wet behind the ears. Some things needed to be guided correctly, not left unchecked, and let her learn by herself. 12 years old was the best age to mold people. After this period, their thinking would be fixed, and it would be difficult to change. His daughter didn't like the Analects of Confucius, which could be seen from the few comments on it. But he couldn't deny it just because he liked it. Half of the Analects of Confucius to rule the world was not a joke. He had to learn it, but he had to learn it selectively. As a monarch, learning the Analects of Confucius could help him hone his temperament. He would know how to control his subordinates, win people's hearts, and understand the public opinion. In short, there were many benefits. Lu Shi had been an official in a remote place for many years, but after so many years, his governance was very effective. The prosperity of the county was no less than that of Hejin County. From poverty to wealth and prosperity, the county under his rule had undergone earth-shattering changes. He could see clearly what the children of those rich families were like, and he was afraid that Jianghu would go astray because of curiosity or arrogance. The sage's words are meant to restrain a gentleman, not a villain. You don't have to read too much about those vague words. Jianghu believed that if Lu Shi's words were thrown out, he would be condemned by the old-fashioned Confucian scholars. It was simply disgraceful. Lu Shi smiled and said, "Even so, it also reveals a truth. Those who win people's hearts will win the world." The current Dongqing was not like that. The former emperor was absurd. He killed his father to ascend the throne. After he ascended the throne, he only knew how to enjoy himself. He did not cultivate his internal strength, appointed people through nepotism, and trusted villains. Not only that, he even raped his uncle and sister-in-law and forced his uncle to die. When it came to the current emperor, it was even more exciting. He killed his brother, stole his sister-in-law, forcefully snatched his minister's wife, slacked off in government affairs, and only knew how to eat, drink, and have fun all day long. He was arrogant, tyrannical, muddle-headed, and blind. He favored the villains, indulged his cronies, and persecuted good ministers and generals. The court was a mess. Officials protected each other. Corruption rotted the foundation of Dongqing. There were too many unjust, false, and wrong cases. With such an emperor, Dongqing would be finished sooner or later. As for the 3 tribes of the northern borderline and the Count of Zhenbei, they were just the straw that broke the camel's back. If there was no peace negotiation, Dongqing could still hold on for a few more years. When the princes grew up, there might be a virtuous emperor who could rise to the throne. Perhaps he could still turn the tide and save Dongqing, which was on the verge of collapse. If there was peace negotiation, it would be hard to say if they invited a wolf into the house. The world was faintly in chaos, so he believed Monk Liaochen's words. Jianghu looked at Lu Shi, who was smiling. He was very serious and did not seem to be joking at all. "I will remember father's words." Jianghu secretly rolled her eyes. Lu Shi was egging her on and warning her at the same time. The ancient era was very different from the era she lived in. It was not only in terms of technology, but also in terms of culture and society. Lu Shi's words were still useful to her. As for other things, she still needed time and space to understand them in detail. Chapter 51. Lu Shi sat upright and motionless. He said slowly, "What the people want is naturally what they want." Throughout history, which emperor who lost the people's support survived for a long time? Let's not talk about the current emperor. The former emperor was considered one of the outstanding among them. He smiled contemptuously and briefly talked about the great achievements of the former emperor. He used detailed examples to deepen the impression and analyze them bit by bit. It was not boring and difficult, but it did not make people feel that he was talking empty words. As an emperor, he must rely on the power of the aristocratic families. However, the biggest foundation is still the people. Although Lu Shi was born in a prestigious aristocratic family, he was not optimistic about the future of the aristocratic families. He even faintly felt that they would not last long. Of course, in this context, the aristocratic families had a huge influence on the court. They could even cover the sky with one hand. The former emperor failed because he offended the aristocratic families, but the core reason was that he lost the people's support. If not, how could Prince Gongshan of Hejian County break through Shenyang City without any obstacles and put a sharp blade on the former emperor's neck? Prince Gongshan of Hejian County, Wu Meijin, was the emperor sitting on the dragon throne. He was the brother of the former emperor. However, when the two brothers fought, they did not care about family. After Prince Gongshan ascended to the throne, he even ignored the advice of the officials and ordered the former emperor to die. He prayed to the heavens for rain to appease the people. Jiang Pengji had a rough understanding of the situation. She felt that the background of the ancient times was inexplicably similar to the era she was in. In her era, there were many aristocrats. Some aristocratic families were so powerful that they could even change the government of the Federation. But no matter how much they struggled, the ruler of the Federation was still the largest number of citizens. Whether it was aristocratic families or aristocrats, they could not live without those people. In this era, the meaning was similar. No matter how powerful the aristocratic families were, they could not go against the voice of the people. Of course, some aristocratic families were arrogant and thought that they could play with the situation of the world in their palms. Such fools were like monkeys. As she was thinking, Lu Shi looked at her with gentle eyes. It was as if his dark and bright eyes were filled with clear spring water. You are my only child. My family has been very lenient towards you, so it's inevitable that you've been raised to the point where you don't know empty tie. You can only see the prosperity in your eyes, but you can't see the rot and decay in the depths. The people's hearts may seem easy to write, but it's very difficult to write it beautifully. His pale fingers gripped the brush and steadily wrote down 2 large characters on a piece of bamboo paper. The will of the people. If the words have no bones, they are nothing but empty talk. If the words are formless, others will know their roots with a glance. It is easy to write, but hard to do. Lu Shi smiled faintly. Jiang Pengji's expression changed when she heard that. Then what does father mean? Lu Shi threw the bamboo slip away. See it with your own eyes and understand it for yourself. Only then will you understand the content of the book better. Do you know how high the prices of goods are outside? Do you know what people need? Do you know why people who have left their homes are willing to sell their children? Without understanding the needs of the people, how could he truly consider for them? If they couldn't even do this, it would be impossible for them to win the hearts of the people. If they were betrayed and stabbed in the back because of this, it would be too humiliating. However, Jiang Pengji had another question in her mind. He said that Lu Lanting was his only child. Then what about the 2 concubine sons and daughters in the backyard? Lu Shi's clear voice was especially heavy under the flickering candlelight in the study. It was as if he was hiding a deadly poison. Jiang Pengji also felt that the topic of father-son conversation was very dangerous. Lanting, do you want to hear about the interesting things I've encountered while I was in office? Lu Shi wisely stopped the topic and chose to let Jiang Pengji think about it herself. What he had said was not only related to being a ruler, but it was also related to being an official. How could an official who did not understand the needs of the people truly consider for them? He did not care which direction his daughter was going in. The only difference was the size of her ambition. Oh, there was a bedtime story to listen to. Jiang Pengji perked up. Of course I want to. Lu Shi used his calm and cool voice to talk about his experiences as an official in those places. The content was very broad, from the smallest of trifles to the sinister fights in the backyard, to the various situations in the marketplace, and to the infighting in the officialdom. It sounded frequent, but it was actually quite thrilling. No matter how poor a place was, there was no shortage of local tyrants. As a county chief from another place, he had to have some tricks up his sleeve if he wanted to govern a county. During the most difficult times, he was almost turned into a figurehead by the local gentry. As Madame Hu had said, Lu Shi's handsome appearance hid a bellyful of dark water. If he couldn't do it from the front, then he would do it from the side. It didn't matter if his methods were honorable or not. Whose house did not have some secrets? Whose hands were completely clean? Whose wife could be truly calm and magnanimous when faced with a house full of concubines and sons and daughters of concubines? He was like a venomous snake on the hunt, calmly waiting for his prey to lower its guard. After a few months of lying low, he still managed to take care of those arrogant gentry. His way of telling stories was not old-fashioned. It was even a little humorous, but it was a far cry from his immortal-like image. Jiang Pengji had to admit that she was more curious about the outside world. She had a concrete impression of it in her mind. She didn't have to categorize everything in this era as the products of the backward and ignorant ancient times. Even though Lu Shi was worried that Jiang Pengji would become a naive girl who did not know the ways of the world, it was still a lucky hit. She said solemnly, "I understand what you mean, father." That's good. Lu Shi had recently become fond of this action. As he spoke, he took a small box from his side, opened it, and took out the booklet inside. You're 12 years old this year. In 2 years you'll be at the age to get married and start a career. Jiang Pengji's mouth twitched uncontrollably. 12 years old. She would be 14 in 2 years. She would be starting a family? Suddenly, she felt that those people in their 30s who were still studying hard in the higher education institutions in her previous life were like overgrown babies. What's this? She took the booklet from Lu Shi and opened it carefully. She almost couldn't understand it after looking through it. Your mother left you a list of dowries. The top one is hers, and the bottom one was added by me over the years, Lu Shi said with a smile. Lu Shi smiled. Of course, I have other plans for your marriage. This list can't be considered a dowry. He had never planned to marry his daughter off. If that was the case, he would not have needed to hide the death of his second son many years ago. Jiang Pengji did not know much about the price of goods in that era, but she felt that there were a lot of things on the booklet. She looked at the end of the booklet and saw the land, rice, and horse businesses. Her eyebrows twitched. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.